Who are these 20 special children?
There's Millie, she's a brown girl.
Millie who?
All feels very familiar because 10 years ago I was in the Secretary of State's seat and we were making changes. I would say to ministers that today is probably the high point, if they like, of their announcements, because I think many of us who've been there have got the scars from actually in the detailed reform of the curriculum into exam qualifications. So the questions you were asking about things like conspiracy theories, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be taught in that way, but it is a question to ask, which is, well, exactly how do you equip to make sure there are good conversations in classrooms, to encourage critical thinking, awareness that what you encounter on the internet may not always be accurate. You should always ask questions about it. And those are lessons that aren't just relevant to young people, they're relevant for all of us.
I should say, yeah.
But I think broadly, I welcome a lot of this. The curriculum does need modernising. I think AI is absolutely a part of our lives. I welcome the fact we're going to have more testing awareness of how students are doing in those first couple of years at secondary school. I'm a little worried about the grammar changes for the primary curriculum because we have done very well English schools in international league tables and things like reading, and that's because of the grammar changes we've made. But look, overall, I think it's a good step. Becky Francis, who led the review, is well respected. I think, as ever, how this translates into actual change will be key to watch.
Max?
I think that it's a broad range here, and as Nikki says, this is a process, this is a review. Obviously, it's government-backed, and the government are going to be supporting most of it, but there's going to be consultations with stakeholders, with politicians, so there's going to be a lot of different bits and pieces that are going to change around it before it actually is enacted in a few years' time. I think that I'm not usually in the habit of talking up Tory achievements, but when it comes to...
Here we go.
But I will say, when it comes to reading standards amongst children, that was something that the last Tory government did well. And part of that was because of phonics and the focus there. And I was glad to see in the detail of this that Labour are going to be doing even more training with reception year teachers to try and get phonics up even higher. With Labour, the government have got this target of 90% of primary school.
What is it?
It's how children learn to read. So it's spelling out, it's the sounds. It's a very different way from how it used to be.
Okay.
So I'm glad that there is a focus on that. I'm also glad that there is a broad focus where it's not just arts or science. There is a focus on getting more children into STEM subjects, but also encouraging music classes as well. Sometimes the debate ends up being binary, whereas actually children need a broad education. And then to your questioning earlier about AI, and I've got no idea how this is going to happen in practice, but it seems to me that a crucial part of thinking about AI is about developing critical thinking amongst children, so they can actually think about what this is at the moment, where it will go next, what are the morals around it. And I think a focus on that critical thinking element has to be a key part.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I always find that the generation who grew up with the technology are normally the best generation at using it. It's all those people like us, the older farts, who are slightly worse at it. But just on that point, actually, about change, because 10 years ago, AI was a thing, but it was a very niche thing. Now it's a very central thing to increasingly all our lives. I mean, where it's going to be in 10 years, none of us know. And isn't that the point? By the time this gets announced, it goes through all the things that you talked about, lots of particularly the kind of cutting-edge bit of the curriculum could well be slightly out of date.
Well, I think they're talking about implementing in 2028. Okay. So we've got, another 3 academic years. And you're right. I suppose the lesson from this is how do you continue to keep certain parts of the curriculum up to date? So particularly computing. So you're right, 10 years ago, we were talking about coding, which people don't seem to talk about anymore. It's always about AI, and then quantum will be the next thing, probably. But there are going to be other parts of the curriculum. I guess, I'm going to say history, and probably I'm going to get shouted at now by all the history teachers who might be watching. But there'll be certain bits that obviously are slower time in terms of needing to be updated. But I think that's what the DfE will be interesting to see how they plan to continue to keep certain bits of the curriculum, as I say, up to date.
Okay, really fascinating, and an issue that we will be returning to, not least of all AI, which is we tend to talk about it all the time. Okay, we're going to go to the United States now because President Trump, as we talked about a little earlier, has been talking in the last hour or so in a speech referring back to that big win in New York for Zohran Madani, who, of course, is now the new mayor of that city. Let's have a listen to what the US President had to say a little earlier.
The Democrats are so extreme that Miami will soon be the refuge for those fleeing communism in New York City. After last night's results, the decision facing all Americans could not be more clear. We have a choice between communism and common sense.
Let's bring in Mark Stone, our US correspondent, who is clearly at that speech. And Mark, a reflection not just on New York there, but let's be honest about this, not the best of nights for President Trump, a better night for the Democrats.
Yeah, for sure. I hope you can hear me, Darren, over the music. The Village People, YMCA, just carrying Donald Trump off the stage after a long, long speech here at the America Business Forum in the heart of Miami. An interesting choice by the president to be here. It is, of course, exactly a year since he was propelled back to the White House for that second term as the American president. And he's chosen to be here, perhaps a safe space among business leaders at a business forum in a safe state as well, in Florida, his home state. And he spent the past hour reminding those business leaders, who I have to say are absolutely fans of his down here in Florida, wealthy business people, people, reminding them of just how great he thinks America is 10 months into his second term. There was some words, though, you played a few of them there, about Zohran Mamdani, who has been elected as the Democratic Party mayor of New York City, one of 3 upsets for the Republican Party, the other 2 being the governor races, both in Virginia and in New Jersey, both of them to Democrats as well. And, you know, he frames Zohran Mamdani, as you might expect him to, as a communist. He said it before, Mamdani is a proud socialist, a democratic socialist. He doesn't hide from that. His speech last night was very much about all of that. But from Trump's perspective, he's a communist. And I think, in a way, his election will kind of allow Donald Trump to do what he's done before, to remind those who are listening that the Democrats are now moving far to the left of centre. In a sense, I think that will somewhat help him. But what's also true, and we've been travelling around the country over the past week or so, we've got a real sense that, while those that are already wealthy, the business leaders, are happy with the economy under Trump, the stock market doing well, drill down, talk to the people who propelled Trump to the White House, the grassroots, Republicans in places like Pennsylvania. They are still struggling. The cost of living is still high. The figures may be good, but people aren't feeling it. It was a problem for Joe Biden. It remains a problem for President Trump.
Okay, Mark Stone, live for us there in Miami with YMCA in the background. Thank you very much indeed. And I think sometimes we have to kind of remind ourselves that after US presidential elections, we now essentially always get the village people in YMCA. It's rather odd, isn't it? But there we go. Okay, right, you're watching the Politics Hub here on Sky News. Up next, we'll have more on Mamdani's win in New York. He's been self-styled as President Trump's worst nightmare as he stormed to victory in New York. But we'll be asking whether any lessons can be learned here at home. That's next.
Coming up on the UK Tonight at 8, we'll have the latest on the manhunt for not 1, but 2 prisoners released by mistake from Wandsworth Prison. Plus tonight, I'm joined in the studio by Australian campaigners who say that their idea to tackle knife crime could also work here. And as Prince William follows in his mother's footsteps in Brazil, his brother writes a love letter to Britain. All that and much more on the UK Tonight from 8.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
The slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat mirror, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
Welcome back to Sky News. Now, before the break, we were talking about Zohran Mamdani's victory in New York. Donald Trump, of course, has made no secret of not being his biggest fan. But back here, the city's mayor-elect has attracted his own supporters, not least of all the Green Party leader, Zach Polanski, who told Sky News that the election felt like a moment where hope has triumphed.
I think what Zohran really did was connect with the lives of ordinary people, mobilise young people, and it wasn't just about social media. I think that sometimes it becomes about the communication style. He's undoubtedly an incredible communicator, but actually I think it was about the policies. It was a relentless focus on inequality, and that's exactly what we're going to do here.
And it also seems that even those on the right side of left-wing politics, i.e. the Health Secretary Wes Streeting, was also keen to congratulate him. This is what he posted on social media today, saying that Mamdani's campaign had been inspirational and that there were lessons for progressives to be learned the world over. Well, let's bring in Nikki and Max, who are still with us. And I suppose you look at this, are the lessons to be learned? Because I was also wondering, I was saying to you guys during the break, what is an American communist? I mean, Wes Streeting to Donald Trump is probably an American communist.
Well, I think the whole notion of lessons being learned is quite overblown. We're talking about mayor of a city. We're talking about this election was, frankly, a foregone conclusion because it's a democratic city. How that then correlates to a parliamentary system in the UK at a general election for a country rather than a city, I'm not sure. So I think most of these lessons...
He did a bit like Jeremy Corbyn, though, in 2017, managed to seemingly get some people who might not have voted ever before to come out, which was interesting.
Sure, mobilising, but I think I think the lesson to be learned, as it were, is that you pick a good candidate who talks about issues that matter to people like the cost of living. And if you can focus on that, then it's not terribly complicated. And in that sense, that is something that can be learned, I suppose.
Nikki?
I don't know. I think he clearly caught the imagination of lots of people. I was watching an interview somebody did last night, and they voted for Trump last year, and they voted for Mandani yesterday.
Wow,
now, that is quite a shift.
That is quite a swing.
And I suspect that's partly because they just want to shake the system up. And so I think if there are a number of voters, and I think we do have to watch for that in the UK, who are sort of, in a way, I don't mind who I vote for. I just want to send a signal to the establishment, the Westminster Parliament, that I want to shake up, I want things to change. And so the fascinating thing, of course, will be, as we know, it's easy to make the promise on the campaign trail. Actually, is he now going to be able to deliver, particularly given he's got a president who
will
is
do
very
his damn hardest not to make it happen.
absolutely.
But just very finally on that point, why is populism? We talk about these terms all the time, but we focus a lot on right-wing populism. Actually, isn't this a demonstration? Interesting, of course, the Green Party leader talking a little earlier. Maybe we don't talk about left-wing populism enough. And actually, it could be a real weakness for Labour going forward.
Well, definitely, yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the time you talk about Labour, and with the Labour, a lot of the media focus on the threat from reform, but of course there's a huge threat from the left as well. We saw it at the last 2024 election when several Labour MPs lost seats to pro-Palestinian insurgent MPs. So certainly there is that left populism. But I think going to Nikki's point about shaking up the system, going against the status quo. I think there is this change, this desire for change, which Labour tapped into last year. And maybe there's that sort of theme that's still there, where it resonates with people, whether it's left or right. You want to shake up the perceived system and get something different.
And just very finally on this, do you agree with that?
I do agree with that, and I think also if there were clear campaign messages he used, and so people do like to vote for clarity, and so. But as I say, I think how he now governs is going to be
the real
incredibly
test.
interesting.
Max and Nikki, it's been an absolute pleasure tonight. Thank you very much indeed. We certainly got around a lot of issues, didn't we, in the bot of the world, and that is it for the Politics Hub for tonight. We're back at 7 tomorrow. Do join me 10 if you can. Up next, it's the UK Tonight with Sergio and me. Have a nice evening. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, 2 more inmates released from a UK prison by mistake. The men, a foreign sex offender and a fraudster from Surrey, were both prisoners at HMP Wandsworth. One was released last week, the other freed on Monday. It comes just days after the government brought in tougher new rules following the accidental release of the Epping asylum seeker, who'd been jailed for sex offences. And today's revelations pile the pressure on the government and the prison service. Also tonight, the father of the Southport attacker says he is desperately sorry. Alphonse Rudy-Cabana telling the public inquiry into that attack that he had lost control of his son, who repeatedly threatened to kill him. Plus, tonight I speak to Australian campaigners who have been in Westminster today to explain why their idea to tackle knife crime could also work here. And Prince William following in his mother's footsteps in Brazil, while his brother writes a love letter to Britain. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. We begin tonight with a search for not 1, but 2 prisoners released by mistake. Authorities currently searching for 24-year-old Brahim Kadur Sharif and 35-year-old Billy Smith, both released in error from HMP Wandsworth in southwest London. Well, this all comes just days after migrant sex offender Hadish Kabatu was set free from HMP Chelmsford by mistake, which led to a tightening of rules around the release of prisoners. Coming up, we'll discuss what's going wrong in our prison service. But first, our national correspondent Tom Parmenter has our first report tonight.
It's happened again. Not 1, but 2 prisoners let out by mistake, this time at Wandsworth Prison in southwest London. 2 manhunts are now underway. First, 24-year-old Brahim Kadur Sharif. The Algerian national is a registered sex offender who was serving time for another offence. This was him when he was arrested in September. He was due to be deported due to overstaying his visa. The police are now urgently trying to find him. He was let out on October the 29th. Astonishingly, it took 6 days for the prison authorities to tell the police he was missing. It comes straight after the case of Hadish Kabatu, another convicted sex offender. He was released in error from Chelmsford Prison. He was on the run for 48 hours before being caught and deported. The Justice Secretary, David Lammy, was asked about it in the Commons.
Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a very specific question for him to answer.
The Algerian sex offender is not an asylum seeker, but Mr Lammy didn't answer the question.
After his release, I put in place the toughest checks we've ever had in the prison system. It is important that Lynn Owens is able to get to the bottom of her work. I suspect there'll be more checks and balances we need to do. What we inherited was a complicated system that they set up, letting people out on the sly. That's part of the problem. We're trying to fix it.
In his latest statement, the Justice Secretary said, "I'm absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistaken release of a foreign criminal wanted by the police. The Metropolitan Police is leading an urgent manhunt, and my officials have been working through the night to take him back to prison. Victims deserve better, and the public deserve answers." They do, because this happens more than you might think. Every month across the country, around 22 prisoners are released like this. David Lammy may say that he has now the tightest checks ever in place on prison gates, but they're clearly not working. The second mistake at Wandsworth was the release of this man, Billy Smith, from Woking in Surrey. He'd been sentenced to 45 months for fraud offences, but released on the same day. The courts gave the prison the wrong instructions. It all points to a criminal justice system that's failing victims and communities. Both of these manhunts were entirely avoidable and illustrate the gap between government ambition and the reality of what's happening inside. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, Wandsworth Prison.
Well, Tom is outside Wandsworth Prison for us tonight, our chief political correspondent standing by in Westminster for the political reaction. Tom, I'm going to come to you first. Those manhunts underway. What's the latest this evening?
As we were breaking this story on Sky News at lunchtime, you just thought, how is this happening again? And that is, I think, the question being asked across the country tonight. What on earth is actually going on in the prison service? These manhunts are both ongoing tonight. Metropolitan Police leading one, Surrey Police leading the other. And it is something of a farce that they are having to do that. And you really did sense the frustration from the Metropolitan Police that it was 6 days between the point of this Algerian offender being allowed out of Wandsworth Prison and the Metropolitan Police being told of that fact. That puts them at a huge disadvantage in this manhunt because he's had 6 days to potentially travel out of London, potentially far further. There will perhaps be people assisting those offenders, and the police will no doubt be trying to trace people that they know and trying to bring them back into custody as quickly as possible. And within what the Justice Secretary had to say today, I mean, he's clearly angry once again that, again, the prison service is something of a joke to many people, that this continues to happen. But it really has to deliver the kind of change that David Lammy talks about. I've just been speaking to an inmate who had just walked out in the last 20 minutes from Wandsworth Prison. He'd just been released properly, and he told me that inside it was chaos, in his view. He said that the members of staff that he'd seen processing these releases are young and inexperienced and, in his words, don't particularly seem to know what they're doing. He talked about shouting going on between staff and a picture of chaos, really, behind the prison doors. And yes, there are systemic problems within the prison service that need to be fixed, but this is a more immediate thing that you would think would be fixable. These checks on releases need to be more thorough. The Justice Secretary has demanded that they are more thorough, and these mistakes just don't happen, but they keep happening, and that is a huge problem for the government's credibility.
Yeah, indeed. Tom, thank you. Tom Parmenter outside HMP Wandsworth for us tonight. Let's talk to John, who's standing by in Westminster. Some really tough questions for the government today, John.
Yes, and there are plenty of questions being asked of the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, who was standing in at PMQs because the Prime Minister is on his way, or may have arrived now in Brazil for the COP Climate Summit. Here's a letter from Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary. Lots of questions here. For example, when were you first made aware of the mistaken Wandsworth release, and why did you not inform the public immediately? That's question number one. Well, we now know that Mr Lammy was made aware last night, and yet nothing seemed to happen between last night and midday today, when he was asked 5 times by the Tories stand-in for Kemi Badenoch, that was James Cartledge, the Shadow Defence Secretary, about further releases by mistake. Now, because he he refused to answer the questions, we understand that, in fact, the police didn't have a problem with him giving a frank, candid answer, and he just looked shifty, as if it looked like a cover-up. And throughout the afternoon, the Conservatives have been trying to drag him back to the House of Commons to answer those questions. Now, what happened at the end of PMQs was that Mr Cartledge stood up and said, it's just been reported that, in fact, this prisoner has been released wrongly. The Speaker gave him a chance to answer, but he absolutely hurried out of the Commons chamber, ignoring the Speaker, who was, clearly thought he perhaps ought to answer the question. I mean, other questions, for example, why were the Metropolitan Police not informed of the accidental release for 6 days? That is a question that nobody has managed to answer satisfactorily today, and there are more. Now, Mr Lammy stands accused of bungling this. Should have been more candid with MPs and the public. He seemed to just sit on the information, and he's been heavily criticised, obviously by a political opponents, but many on the Labour side think it didn't look good. He lost his temper with Mr Cartledge. That didn't look good either. There was a little hint that something might be amiss when he said in one of his answers to Mr Cartledge's 5 questions, He talked about the extra measure he'd already brought in after the Chelmsford mistake, that he said might be more measures needed, which perhaps was a signal or a hint that perhaps all was not well. Either way, Mr Lammy stands accused of bungling this, accused of a cover-up, not being frank with MPs and with the public. And when he had the opportunity to come back to the House of Commons, as MPs clearly wanted him to, that often happens if a minister's got new information, they come back later in the day. And Mr Lammy seems to have gone into hiding, and he has emerged from this very badly indeed.
John, thank you. John Craig with the latest from Westminster. Well, let's speak now to Mark Fairhurst, National Chair of the Prison Officers Association. Good to see you tonight, Mark. Thank you for coming on to talk about this breaking news. We understood that the government had brought in more checks and tighter rules around prisoner release following that high-profile mistaken release of Hadish Kabatu a couple of weeks ago. And now this. What was your reaction when you heard the news?
Well, I was as shocked as everybody else, but what I can confirm in this instance is that this was a clerical error. The warrant from the court didn't arrive, which meant we didn't have the legal authority to hold the prisoner in custody. So quite correctly, we had to release them. So somewhere between the court and Wandsworth Prison, we haven't received the warrant.
So a mistake was made in paperwork and this prisoner has now been released. In terms of how this happens, Tom Parmenter, our national correspondent outside HMP Wandsworth tonight, was saying that actually this is more common than the public may be aware of. Of course, these two prisoners being released by mistake, making the headlines because, as I said, it comes hot on the heels of the mistaken release of Hadish Kabatu, and the government saying, you know, this won't happen again, we're tightening up the rules. But 22 prisoners are mistakenly released every month. How can that happen?
Well, this is what shocks me more than anything. The leaders of this service have known that for at least the last 18 months. There have been regular occurrences of releases in error. 262 up to March 2025. That's over 100% increase on the year before. So why is it only now, due to these high-profile releases in error, have leaders of this service decided to take action? We need to look at what's gone wrong. We need to put it right. But we need to do that rapidly.
Yeah, and in terms of the government's plan for this early prisoner release scheme, we know the reasons behind that is because the UK prisons are, you know, nearly at capacity. We know that. So they've introduced that, which obviously adds to more prisoners being released from prisons every month. And the government may argue that that plan itself isn't flawed. It's there for the reasons they state, but the support system is flawed. The services within the prison stretch. Tom Parmenter, our correspondent, there talking about a conversation he had with a prisoner who was released, genuinely released this evening, and he spoke of a scene inside the prison of chaos when it came to his release. Inexperienced young staff all shouting at each other. Nobody seemed to know what was going on. The service itself can't seem to cope with the simple demands, but the high number of demands being made of them.
Yes, so the problem is, Sarah, that there's a lot of pressure on the entire criminal justice system. It's not just prisons, it's probation, it's police, it's the court system, and that's why the POA have called for a Royal Commission into the entire criminal justice system so we can find out what's going wrong and put it right. And this is down to decades of underinvestment from successive governments. We have a severe lack of training for staff, and especially in reception areas and for discharging managers. They don't get any training whatsoever. You could be a prison officer today and in a few days' time get promoted, be discharging prisoners from reception. You haven't received any training whatsoever, and you're relying on experienced staff to guide you. And of course, the offender management units who process prisoner calculations because of these area releases, they have to use pen and paper. In a digital world, we haven't had modern systems to assist us, so we need investment in the infrastructure as well.
I may be labouring a point here, but I think for people watching at home, we all have processes that we go through at work, you know, for whatever procedure it may be. And the release of a prisoner, as you said, comes with paperwork. It may not all be digital at the moment. It's quite an old-fashioned system, as you said, pen and paper being used. But talk us through the process of how a prisoner who's committed a crime can be released mistakenly. Where are the mistakes being made? You highlighted that mistake that was made at court that meant that a prisoner didn't go to HMP Wandsworth, was released, and that was because the wrong information was given. By the time the right information had given to them, he'd already gone free, and now there's a manhunt. But talk us through the nuts and bolts of how 22 prisoners a month are mistakenly released.
Well, quite often a prisoner will come into prison, and because of the early release scheme, their sentence will have to be recalculated to release them at the 40% mark. If that calculation is incorrect, we release them early. If remand time isn't taken into account, they get released early. It's quite often that we haven't got the correct information from the Home Office if they need to be deported, or we haven't got the correct warrant in place or licence conditions. So a lot of things can go wrong, but this is down to the pressure on staff. Are they trained sufficiently to calculate sentences? And of course, it's not a straightforward process because we don't have digital systems that can assist us progress and process these sentences.
So it's more investment and a longer-term plan that's needed to address these issues. There's not going to be changes overnight. So when you hear the government say, look, we've brought in more checks and tighter rules, that's sort of, you know, that's just words. That's not, in effect, coming in to force in prisons. They can do no more, if you like.
The thing is, so far, those additional checks brought in by David Lammy, which consist of 30 checks prior to someone's release by a duty governor and 12 checks by the discharging manager in reception, they've been successful. They were at fault in this instance. One of them was due to the court giving us the wrong information, and the other was because we didn't have a warrant to hold that person. So the checks have actually worked so far. What I would hope from this independent review, which is being conducted by Dame Owens, is that she realises that we need investment in IT, we need investment in staff training, we need specialist staff in receptions. But what I would like to see is a standardisation across the entire estate for sentence calculation and discharge processes in reception, because we know every reception has its localisms. So although we achieve the same aim and follow the same processes, there are differences in how we do that. And I think we now need to standardise it. And we definitely need a senior manager based in reception full-time to oversee every discharge and every reception process.
Yeah, and those, on average, 22 prisoners were mistakenly released every month. You know, as you quite rightly pointed out, this isn't a new thing. This has been going on for, you know, a year, 2 years. This is a statistic that occurs every month. These are high profile because of, you know, recent events and the release of Hadish Kabatu. But how do you get those prisoners back? Do you get them back? What's then the process that kicks in? You know, we talk about manhunts. Are there manhunts for every 22 prisoners each month?
There's not a manhunt, so to speak, but what really worries me about this one is that somebody in the prison is responsible for informing the police immediately that there has been a release in error. So why has this taken 6 days to inform the Metropolitan Police that we have released someone in error? That should never happen, and that needs to be rectified and looked into. So what should happen is we tell the police, and they put a warrant out for their arrest, and if they pick them up, they pick them up. If they don't, then they keep looking for them until they do. But most of the time, you know, sir, a lot of people hand themselves in because they realise through news channels, through word of mouth, and sometimes we can contact them because we actually have their phone details, or we can go to their home address and simply pick them up if we inform the police in time. A lot of people hand themselves in and we pick them up at home or in their hostel address, wherever they're in an approved premises. So quite often, a lot of these people realise there's been a mistake and hand themselves in or are easily picked up. In this instance, obviously, these people know they're wanted, they've gone to ground, and it's going to be more difficult after 6 days of someone being released for the police to act. And that really is a concern for me. This should have been acknowledged straight away and the police should have been informed.
Mark Fairhurst, really good to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much for coming on to give your reaction to that breaking news today. Mark Fairhurst is National Chairman of the Prison Officers Association. Appreciate your time. Thank you. The father of the Southport attacker has told the public inquiry that he is desperately sorry about what happened. Alphonse Ruda-Cabana said that he was frightened of his son, who had threatened to kill him on a number of occasions. Sky's Katie Barnfield reports.
When Axel Ruda-Cabana carried out his deadly attack on a children's dance class, his behaviour shocked the country. But his father told the attack inquiry that violence from his son was nothing new, and that he'd seen it so much he became conditioned to expect it. In one incident in early 2024, months before the Southport attack, the inquiry was told Axel Ruda-Cabana poured an entire bottle of oil over his father's head and threatened to kill him.
His eyes were very red, and it seemed like he had some kind of mental anguish, some kind of mental pain. He was poking my chest and saying, if you get me out of here, this house, it may take a day, a week, or it may be years. I will kill you, and trust me, I will kill you.
The inquiry's lawyer, Nicholas Moss Casey, accused Alphonse of undermining the agencies trying to deal with his son's violence. Mr Moss said his father had called up Childline to complain about them reporting him to the police when he said he wanted to stab someone. When Axel Ruda-Cabana went back to his former school and attacked a pupil with a hockey stick, the inquiry was told that officers threatened to arrest Alphonse himself as he argued with them about bringing his son home in handcuffs. Mr Moss said Axel Ruda-Cabana was accessing degrading, violent and gory material online and ordering weapons, including a machete to the family home in 2023. But he said Alphonse failed to put in parental controls to restrict his internet use. In his written statement, Alphonse said he was frightened of his son, which prevented him from doing things a parent would normally do.
This had catastrophic consequences for which I am desperately sorry. I accept that I bear my share of the responsibility and that by not challenging AR's behaviour, he was allowed to acquire dangerous weapons and view inappropriate content online.
Alphonse Ruda-Cabana told the inquiry he now accepts he was very naive, that he had lost control as a father and no longer had any power over a son who would go on to kill. Katie Barnfield, Sky News in Liverpool.
Still to come on the UK tonight, we'll have the latest from Rio, with Prince William set to announce the winners of his Earthshot Prize. Meanwhile, his brother, Prince Harry, expresses his love for all things British, despite living in California, and bringing his love letter to the UK. And the chief executive of Maccabi Tel Aviv tells Sky News their match against Aston Villa has been taken over by people who spew hatred. And the latest from Birmingham.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. How will the cult affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country? We have a major migrant problem.
I'm Martha Kellner, and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
The chief executive of Maccabi Tel Aviv has told Sky News that their match against Aston Villa tomorrow night has been taken over by people who want to spew hatred. Away fans have been banned from the game at Villa Park amid public safety concerns, a decision condemned by the Prime Minister. Let's bring in our sports correspondent Rob Harris, who joins us now from Villa Park. So tell us more about what he's had to say, Rob.
Well, it's building up to this highly politically charged, tense match tomorrow night. There are going to be more than 700 police officers deployed here already across Birmingham. I've seen pro-Palestinian protesters calling for Israeli teams to be banned from European football. They're not, but Maccabi Tel Aviv's fans have been banned from this match, a decision that caused a lot of anger in Downing Street and at the club itself in Israel. Police have only said it's based on intelligence and past incidents, and that relates to what happened in Amsterdam a year ago when Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were attacked by locals in Amsterdam, but also the Israeli fans were also seen hurling anti-Arab abuse and tearing down Palestinian flags. But Maccabi Tel Aviv CEO, after arriving here in Birmingham, told me that another instance about their fans are being mischaracterised. Have you been given a clear reason for this ban on your fans? As in, is it to protect your fans, to protect the team, or is it over concerns about what your fans?
No, there isn't. We have not been given a clear reason, but I have seen, again, people coming up with all sorts of stories of our fans, especially in Amsterdam, where there was what the Amsterdam authorities themselves classified as a Jew hunt, being portrayed as organised fighters, soldiers, etc., etc. It's just blatant falsehoods, and the people who say those things know that they're false, and shame on them.
Some of your fans were filmed chanting anti-Arab slogans in Amsterdam, Palestinian flags being ripped down as well. Your own statement the other week referenced a problem with racist fans as well.
Yes, I think any club that tries to suggest that they don't have any issues, whatever that may be, it's untrue. I mean, there are clubs that have managed to improve the situation. We know we've got a long road ahead. There are elements in the club that they're not in line with our values, our morals, and we do expend a lot of energy and have been for many, many years in trying to eradicate that. But to malign thousands and thousands of good fans with the actions of a few, it's a dangerous game.
Jack Angelidis there went on to tell me he thinks hatred is being spewed about at his club. They rejected any allocation, even if the ban had been overturned, because of concerns about the safety of their fans here. We are waiting to see just how protests will unfold here tomorrow night. There are pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli protests planned. Schools are closing by 2 o'clock in the area. Such is the concern as police try to protect both the local community and safeguard the match and the right to protest. But this has created a lot of friction here and far beyond in Israel too, which has seen the Israeli fans banned from this match.
Rob, thank you. Prince William will award 5 people £1 million this evening as he names this year's winners of his Earthshot Prize in Rio. Prince of Wales is making a 5-day visit to Brazil, where he will also give a speech at COP30, the UN's annual climate meeting. It comes as senior royals trying to put controversy around Andrew Windsor behind them. Sky's royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills has the latest from Rio.
We started the day kind of in the most incredible way, really, to kind of shine a spotlight on the Earthshot Prize. They had closed down Christ the Redeemer statue. No visitors were allowed up there, apart from Prince William, us, and the Earthshot finalists. So he took a bit of time talking to them about what it's been like so far to be part of this movement that they describe it now, in terms of the support that they're getting, but also what potentially it could mean to them to win those £1 million prizes. As he said, 5 of them being given out later on today. Prince William also took a bit of time after posing for a photo with the finalists. He also took a bit of, well, it felt like a moment of kind of quiet reflection, really. He walked to an area up there where Princess Diana had previously visited back in 1991. All the newspaper journalists were so excited that he was sort of recreating this moment. But it did feel like he was sort of stopping and taking a sort of a pause, really, after what has been an incredibly busy few days, but also a really difficult few weeks for the royal family. I think they will be delighted that so far they've got to this point and there hasn't been any mention, really, of Andrew, his uncle. There hasn't been any big kind of revelations around him that have sprung up. The only thing today, though, is that people are starting to also talk about Prince Harry, because he's doing a trip to Canada at the moment to celebrate remembrance. He also released an essay today, quite a personal one as well, talking about his time serving in the armed forces, how it's easy for us to forget veterans. And so I think for Harry and William, both of them, well, they get frustrated, really, that we pit them against each other. But it does feel a bit like a bit of an own goal, the fact Harry's doing something at the same time as William. However, this evening, when the likes of Kylie Minogue, the singer Shawn Mendes, hit the green carpet with Prince William, he hopes that he can sort of drag our attention back here and get us to focus on what he hopes is a positive message ahead of him heading to Belém and that COP climate conference tomorrow, where, of course, there is so much pessimism about whether or not anything meaningful can really come from it.
Meanwhile, Prince Harry has expressed his pride at fighting for his country and his love for things that make us British in an essay to mark this year's Remembrance commemorations. Prince Harry wrote this: "Though currently I may live in the United States, Britain is and always will be the country I proudly served and fought for. The banter of the mess, the clubhouse, the pub, the stands, ridiculous as it sounds, these are the things that make us British. I make no apology for it. I love it. That same spirit lives in every member of our armed forces and the families who serve beside them." Prince Harry going on to say, "So as we bow our heads this weekend, let us remember not only the fallen, but the living, those who still carry the weight of war in body and mind, and the families who bear its memory in their hearts. If you live near them, knock on their door. If you see them around, shake their hand. And if you feel so inclined, join them for a cuppa or a pint to hear their story and remind them their service still matters. This does come on the UK Tonight. I'm going to be joined by the Australian campaigners who have been talking to officials in Westminster today about why their idea to tackle knife crime could also work here in the UK. Lives with handheld detectors in any public place. Well, it is named after teenager Jack Beasley, who was stabbed and killed on a night out with friends on the Gold Coast back in 2019. His parents have campaigned across Australia to expand the law and have now taken that campaign international. Jack's father, Brett, joins me tonight alongside Queensland Acting Assistant Commissioner Rhys Wellman and Senior Sergeant Brad Ricks from Queensland Police. Gentlemen, welcome to the UK Tonight. Thank you so much for coming to see us.
Thanks,
At the end of what has been a very busy day, because you've been knocking on doors in Westminster and they've been thrown open wide to talk about this. First of all, Rhys, perhaps you can explain to us, in this country we talk about stop and search. What's happening in Australia as a result of what you've done in Queensland, in Jack's name, is stop and scan. And this is all about tackling knife crime. Talk to me about how this came about.
Yeah, obviously on the back of the tragic death of Jack, there was such a community outrage in Queensland around the circumstances for Jack's passing that it drove a groundswell of change. And luckily, our politicians at the time and successive governments since then have had a bilateral support for bringing in these new laws, which is all about not stop and search. This is nothing about searching. This is about scanning. And it's using a device which Brad has here tonight, is one of the devices we use. And it's actually looking at not the offenders so much. It's actually looking at the location. So we're thinking of places of mass gathering, train stations, shopping centres, those type of locations. And it's actually a victim-centric approach. Our focus is about reducing victims. It's not about targeting offenders. It's actually changing behaviour.
So it's a handheld wand. Brad, perhaps you can demonstrate.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, so it's a handheld device that police officers will have across Australia now. And Brett, you and your wife were involved, obviously, because of what happened to your son, Jack. And Rhys mentioned there that you wanted to have this to be a victim-centred approach and get the community on board. Talk to me about how you became involved.
Well, we were involved, obviously, after Jack died, and we helped create these PLs for these guys in Jack's law. So, you know, as he said, it's all about community safety. And we don't want any other parent to go through what we've been through and still going through. So this law is absolutely groundbreaking in Australia. It works. It works good, and it will work here in the UK.
Yeah. Sorry, Brad, show us how it works. Demonstrate on Rhys. So officers will have this.
Very simple. They carry it on their belts. All police officers will carry it on their belts. Simple metal detector. Run across. If it detects the presence of metal, it vibrates. It's silent. Red light goes off, and so the police then know that the person has something in their clothing or in their belongings, which is metal, and then the police then get the person to produce that. It doesn't then lead to a search. And then if it's a lawful item, they go about their business. If it's an illegal item, then we deal with it then.
It literally is a hands-off approach. And Rhys, I know you don't like the term stop and search. You're very keen to say this isn't a search. It's a scan. You'll be well aware of the controversy in the UK over stop and search, hugely controversial because it was criticised for disproportionately targeting minority groups, mainly young black men here in the UK, concerns over its misuse and its damage to public trust. What's your rebuttal to that? Because I'm sure that came up in your discussions in Westminster today. I know you met City Hoyle and also representatives from the Metropolitan Police as well, and the Home Office.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, it was, like I said, it actually came through that groundswell of support from the community. So it was a community-centred approach to this to begin with. And we had a very structured approach on how we engaged and brought these laws into play. Firstly, it was around engaging with key community leaders across multiple sectors of our community, across racial and also religious backgrounds. So we brought, a level of comfort about the laws and how they'd be operated. And then we structured a very detailed media campaign around it as well to provide that level of support for the community and understanding about what the true intent is, about keeping them safe. And this is what it's about. It's not only about keeping our community safe, but them feeling safe. They've got to have both elements so that our community feels safe about using public transport, going to the shops and living their everyday lives. But then we backed that up with special training for our police, frontline police. So it was a person-centric approach. They're well aware of the requirement for them to perform professionally. And as a result, we've completed in Queensland since May 2021 through to just a few days ago, over nearly 200,000 wandings. And with that, those 200,000 odd scans or wandings, we've received 2 police complaints, both of them were unfounded, which is just an incredible effort.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about, profiling, and again, coming back to that criticism about stop and search. I'm sure you asked this question, stop and scan. How would you know who to stop in terms of, would you have to have some kind of suspicion or probable cause, or is this done at random, much as you would do a bag search if you're going into a sports arena, for example?
Totally random, SJ. So that's the whole intent, that anyone that walks through, like if you're walking into a train station, before you even enter the station, so you're walking into the foyer area, then police are waiting. They just randomly pick people out and scan them, so that it's not only about the scanning, but it's about the halo effect of safety that's created around the public. It's actually seeing police interacting in a positive manner with our community. So it's unbridled successes over in Australia.
Brett, what was the response today? As I said, you met
it was good.
Representatives of the Home Office who, knife crime is seen as something that's endemic in this country at the moment. Lots of issues going on, whether it's gang-related or just ordinary kids taking knives to school.
It's scary.
What were the kind of questions they were asking you?
Well, it was very positive today. Sir Lindsay was really positive as well, and so was the at Scotland Yard. So, look, the questions, the race thing, it doesn't matter what colour your skin is. It doesn't matter what agenda you are. If you're out in the community walking around armed with a knife, then these weapons will find it. So, look, as I said before, it works good in Australia, and it will work here in the UK as well.
Yeah, April 2023 to June of this year, 116,000 scans, 1,100 weapons seized. So, Brad, this is taking knives off the street in Australia. But in terms of tackling the root causes of night crime and being effective in that way, do you feel that's working? Have you got evidence to back that up, as it were?
100%. And statistics show that knife crime in the relevant areas has dropped. And as the Assistant Commissioner said, it goes beyond just the enforcement. There's the education as well. And so with the Jack Beazley Foundation, we're in schools and we're educating the kids on the consequences of carrying knives. And that goes beyond just them becoming involved in the justice system and how it affects the families and the snowball effect that it has.
Yeah. Brett, we were talking before we came on air about, how this practical measure has worked in Australia. And I know that you're big on education as well. The two have to work hand in hand. There isn't a single solution to this. In the UK, you feel that we understand a bit about the education. We're just a little bit comes to using a device and practical measures to,
That's right.
to take these knives off the
And
street.
you've got to get used to that. Like, these aren't search powers, and we keep saying that it's not a stop and search, and that's what we had to get through to Scotland Yard today. They're scanning. It's the same as walking through the airport and the bloke behind you calls you over and randomly scans somebody. So education is the key. We need to get to these kids at a young age and teach them the snowball effect and the repercussions of walking around armed with a knife. We don't want another. We've had plenty of incidents in Australia, in shopping centres and on major transport, as the horrific train incident here only a few days ago. It's out of control and something needs to be done about it. And I'm sure the UK community will agree.
Well, Brett Beasley, doing this in the name of your son, Jack, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Rhys Wildman there, Queensland Acting Assistant Commissioner, and Brad Ricks, Senior Sergeant at Queensland Police, coming over to the UK, talking to our government and authorities about this and its possible introduction to the UK at some stage. As you said, positive noises have been made. We'll follow this with some degree of interest. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
Still to come on the programme tonight, the Queen has been rolling up her sleeves to serve some jacket potatoes, would you believe it, for Meals on Wheels week. We'll hear how she got on. And we'll have news from tonight's Champions League matches, including a second-half comeback from Chelsea in their game with Karabag in Azerbaijan. Stay with us.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I am inside jail or killed.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
Hello, welcome back. Coming up, we're going to speak to Spudman about his lunch service with Queen Camilla. You'll want to stay tuned for that one. But first, Jess is here with the sport, and it's all kicking off with just over 2 weeks to go until the Ashes. The sledging has already started, as it always does when it's in Australia. It starts very early, doesn't it?
It does. We've got about, 15 days to go. And I like this stage because the Aussie media really ramp up their attempts to disrupt and cause a bit of disharmony in this England team. And they like to play this game of how many insults they can cram into a newspaper report about the England cricket team. It's absolutely exceptional.
The headlines get really long,
They do. They do. Let me read one out for you. because there was one not on the back page of the sports pages of the West Australian, but the front page.
Oh, yeah, the Ashes go straight on the front page.
Goodness me. So the England captain, Ben Stokes, has landed in Australia, in Perth, for that first test on the 21st of November. The headline, Cocky Captain Complainer. And
that's the headline you can read out.
There were a few I thought, I can't say that live on air, so I won't. And it's not just the captain that they've gone after and his teammates, but the style of England play. They play this way that's quite front foot, it's quite attacking. They call it dodgeball, bazball, and it's been labelled as dopey, carefree and careless. The Western kind of Australian media, they've been doing this for a while. You might remember back in 2013, Stuart Broad, he was part of the Ashes series back then, and they refused to print his image in the newspaper.
Oh, they wouldn't even print his name,
They wouldn't even print his name or his picture in the newspaper as a way to create some negativity. And the headline then, Smug Pommy Cheats.
Yeah, we get the idea. We'll give it back once we warm up, 15 days to go. But the Australian squad's been announced today, has it?
Yeah, it has as well. There's been a recall for Marnus Labuschagne, who's playing some really good cricket at the moment. But this is an Australia side in a state of, in a bit of a transitional period. They've got, without their captain, Pat Cummins, he's injured, so he won't be involved. This might be the best chance that England have to win this in perhaps over a decade, maybe 15 years, since they last won in Australia, 2010, 2011. So it's all ramping up towards that in Perth, that first test on the 21st of November.
Looking forward to it.
That's the cricket. There's lots of football happening. Let's get you to that right away.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Sky Mobile sponsors the transfer window on Sky Sports News.
Right.
Wheels Week. Well, I'm pleased to say Spudman, also known as Ben Newman, joins me now. Ben, good to see you. What a surreal day you have had.
Very, very. I was so impressed with Her Majesty. She did very well, and she loved potatoes.
Who doesn't love a jacket potato? And of course, you going viral on social media has reignited the nation's passion for the old humble spud. Talk to me about Meals on Wheels Week, because this was a really good way of publicising it, putting the Queen in your spud van, serving people.
Absolutely. Well, it's all about giving your time and donating time for this GoVo and the Royal Society, the Royal Volunteer Society, and showing people that you can donate your time, even in like small little chunks, even if it's just half an hour on your lunch break, and the difference that can make to so many people. It's a really good charity, and it's Camilla's obviously the patron of it. So getting her in a jacket potato trailer was fantastic.
Did she have a lunch break? What filling did she have on her jacket potato?
She went for the tuna spud.
The tuna, what's this, tuna mayo, sweet corn? What's the mix?
Just plain potato, loads of butter and tuna mayo on top. And one of her guards came down and says, "Yeah, the lot." So we were very happy.
I love that. I love that. I'm slightly disappointed the Queen didn't go for cheese on her tuna mayo. That's how I like mine. But in terms of, she knew you, didn't she? Because she said that her son, Tom Parker Bowles, well-renowned food writer, she told you a little story about him.
She'd done her research. She knew I was on dialysis. She knew Tom had been to see me, and she'd asked him about it. And she knew I'd got plenty of kids, and she asked me about that. So I was so impressed. She must have gone around the room and seen 20 or 30 other people before she got to me. And she, Spudman, Ben, how you doing? And yeah, I was blown away by everything she knew. I really was. I was really impressed with her. She's a lovely lady.
Oh, you're being very humble. Apparently, the Queen said to you that her son had never forgotten the jacket potato that you served him when he visited your food truck last year. I mean, you're no stranger to royalty, are you? Because you've served showbiz royalty as well. Come on, name drop.
Oh, Tom Walker, Teddy Swims, a few others, along the way.
Yeah, all those celebrities who are meant to be foregoing carbs. Nobody can resist a jacket potato. Listen, so good to talk to you, Ben. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, what an incredible, day you've had, and all for a great cause as well.
Definitely one I'll remember for a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Ben, thanks so much. That's Ben Newman there, or Spudman, as he's known on social media, serving up jacket potatoes. Rather incredible as well. They'll make your tummy rumble if you look at social media tonight. Marking Meals on Wheels Week, grabbing the headlines for a great cause with members of the National Association of Care Catering. They cater for elderly and vulnerable people. Right, let's take a quick look at the weather. Well, it's going to stay unsettled into next week. Brisk winds bringing blustery showers or more persistent rain. England and Wales looking mostly mild and dry this evening. Not bad for fireworks, but Scotland can expect some patchy rain. Ireland and Northern Ireland will see drizzly outbreaks in the north and heavier showery rain in the south. There'll be some hill fog there as well. Britain looking mainly dry overnight, but Scotland and the southeast of England can expect some showery outbreaks. Ireland and Northern Ireland, meanwhile, will see rain spreading in from the south. Well, that's all from the UK tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8. Yalda's next with the world.
Man, you hear this bullshit they be talking every day, man. It's like these motherfuckers is just like professional liars, you know what I'm saying? It's wild. Listen, Bin Laden didn't blow up the projects. It was you, nigga. Tell the truth, nigga. Bush knocked down the tower. Tell the truth, nigga. Bush knocked down the tower. Tell the truth, nigga. Bin Laden didn't blow up the projects. It was you, nigga. Tell the truth, nigga. Bush knocked down the tower. Tell the truth, nigga. Bush knocked down the tower.
I pledge no allegiance, nigga. Fuck the president's speeches. I'm baptized by America and covered in leeches. The dirty water that bleaches your soul and your facial features, drowning you in propaganda that they spit through the speakers. And if you speak about the evil that the government does, the Patriot Act attract you to the type of your blood. They try to frame you and say you was trying to sell drugs and throw a federal indictment on niggas to show you love. This shit is run by fake Christians, fake politicians. Look at their mansions and look at the conditions you live in. All they talk about is terrorism on television. They tell you to listen, but they don't really tell you their mission. They funded Al-Qaeda and now they blame the Muslim religion. Even though Bin Laden was a CIA tactician, they gave him billions of dollars and they funded his purpose. Fahrenheit 9/11, that's just scratching the surface.
Bin Laden didn't blow up the projects. It was you, nigga. Tell the truth, nigga.
fight for Saddam, but that's bullshit. I show you why it's totally wrong. Cause if another country invaded the hood tonight, it'd be warfare through Harlem and Washington Heights. I wouldn't be fighting for Bush or white America's dream. I'd be fighting for my people's survival and self-esteem. I wouldn't fight for racist churches from the South, my nigga. I'd be fighting to keep the occupation out, my nigga. You ever clock someone who talk shit or look at you wrong? Imagine if they shot at you and was raping your moms. And of course Saddam Hussein had chemical weapons. We sold them that shit after Ronald Reagan's election. Mercenary contractors fighting a new era. Corporate military banking off the war on terror. They controlling the ghetto with the fear of attack, trying to distract the fact that they engineering the crack. So I'm strapped like Lee Malvo, holding a sniper rifle. These bullets will touch your kids, and I don't mean like Michael. Your body be sent to the morgue, stripped down and recycled. I fire on house niggas that support you and like you, cause innocent people get murdered in the struggle daily, and poor people never get shit and struggle daily. This ain't no alien conspiracy theory, this shit is real, written on a dollar underneath the Masonic seal.
I don't rap for dead presidents, I'd rather see the president dead. It's never been said, but I set precedents.
Bin Laden blow up the projects. It was you, nigga. Tell the truth, nigga.
Bush knocked down the tower.
Tell the truth, nigga.
Bush knocked down the tower.
Tell the truth, nigga. Bin Laden blow up the projects. It was you, nigga. Tell the truth,
City
nigga.
Records was 80 seconds away from the towers. Them cowards fought with the wrong building. They meant to hit ours.
Man, you hear this bullshit they be talking every day, man. It's like these motherfuckers is just like professional liars, you know what I'm saying? It's wow. Listen, Bin Laden blow up the projects. It was you, nigga. Tell the truth, nigga.
Bush knocked down the tower.
Tell the truth, nigga.
Bush knocked down the tower.
Tell the truth, nigga. Bin Laden blow up the projects. It was you, nigga. Tell the truth, nigga.
Bush knocked down the tower.
Tell the truth, nigga.
Bush knocked down the tower.
I pledge no allegiance, nigga, fuck the president's speeches. I'm baptized by America and covered in leeches. The dirty water that bleaches your soul and your facial features, drowning you in propaganda that they spit through the speakers. And if you speak about the evil that the government does, the Patriot Act to track you to the type of your blood. They try to frame you and say you was trying to sell drugs and throw a federal indictment on niggas to show you love. This shit is run by fake Christians, fake politicians. Look at their mansions and look at the conditions you live in. All they talk about is terrorism on television. They tell you to listen, but they don't really tell you their mission. They funded Al-Qaeda and now they blame the Muslim religion. Even though Bin Laden was a CIA tactician, they gave him billions of dollars and they funded his purpose. Fahrenheit 9/11, that's just scratching the surface.
Bin Laden blow up the projects. It was you, nigga. Tell the truth, nigga.
Bush knocked down the tower.
Tell the truth, nigga.
Bush knocked down the tower.
Tell the truth, nigga. Bin Laden blow up the projects. It was you, nigga.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
We're halfway through the week. Good morning from me too. It's a really, really busy morning of breaking news. We've got lots ahead.
Zoran Mamdani has won the race to be New York City's next mayor.
Against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands.
At least 7 people are dead after a UPS cargo plane crashed just moments after taking off from an airport in Kentucky.
Lessons in how to spot fake news as schools add AI to the curriculum in the biggest shake-up in a decade.
And at 7:30, we're going to be joined by the Mooch. Anthony Scaramucci is going to be here to break down what the US election results overnight mean for the Democrats, but also politics around the world, including here.
And it's bonfire night, but a warning for those going to fireworks later about a rise in the number of kids getting burned.
Hello and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost. Now, we've had some big breaking news overnight. Zoran Mamdani has won the race to be New York City's next mayor. He's Muslim, he's left-wing, and he says he has 4 words for Donald Trump. Turn the volume up.
Well, the Democrats also won governor elections in New Jersey and Virginia. So is this the first sign of a fight back against Donald Trump? There's so much to talk about on this story and what it means for our politics as well. But first, let's have a recap of all of the action overnight from James Matthews in New York.
This is a show Donald Trump didn't want to see, starring Zoran Mamdani. A supporting cast counted Democrats who won electoral contests across America.
You have dared to reach for something greater. Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands.
Mamdani took him from unknown to unstoppable. He is the rising star with a new take on New York and on Democratic Party politics. In a three-way race, Mamdani flew as the progressive Democrat, promising to tax the rich to cut costs for the rest.
I think we need a generational change in politics, and I think that Mamdani will help usher this generational change.
I think it's nice to hear that, things will be free or things will happen, but it's not only him that can make these decisions.
We can't go any more left with the communism now. That can't be allowed in New York City.
Could the Mamdani effect that cemented success here do the same for Democrats nationwide? They are a party seeking an identity and a plan for tackling Trump. The Democratic establishment doesn't think Mamdani's left-wing politics will bite beyond the Big Apple.
Go ahead, make a rap for your nanny.
The Mamdani movement sings from a different song sheet. New York's new mayor used to be a rapper. He called himself Young Cardamom.
The people want to change, we're not content with our Democratic Party.
To Donald Trump, that he should take note that when people unite together, we're going to pick the right person. I don't know what happened before, but now I think everybody has woken up.
This was a night when Americans had their say on politics under President Trump. A referendum of sorts on 9 months of his presidency. The results aren't what he would have wanted. Beyond New York, Democrats won governor contests in Virginia and New Jersey. And Californians backed a move to redraw voting districts to increase Democratic House seats. It was a blue wave of sorts, small but perhaps significant. James Matthews, Sky News, in Queens, New York.
Well, James has been up all night capturing the action, and delighted to say he's stayed up for us. Good morning to you, James. There's so many things we could dwell on, but his victory speech was playing just as I came into the office, and I was struck by how authentic and energetic, and I guess just genuine he was. The line that stood out for me was when he said, I'm young, I'm an immigrant, I'm a democratic socialist, and I refuse to apologise for any of it. And it's such a stark difference from the Kamala Harris campaign a year ago.
Yeah, hi, Wilf. I think authenticity is a key factor in all of this. I was in his company last night in Queens, his heartland, District 31, which he has represented as an assemblyman. And, he engages well with the crowd, presses the flesh, campaign from 6 in the morning till late at night every day. So he's a man who connects with the public, a man who has found a message to enable him to connect with the public, particularly the younger demographic. I was at a watch party in Queens tonight, and they're all huge fans because he talks their language. He tapped in to this business of affordability in a New York that is unaffordable, particularly for younger people, can't afford a house, can't afford a mortgage, can't afford student fees, etc. So he has found a formula. It wasn't hard because it's the same formula deployed by Donald Trump before the last election. Affordability, the cost of living, the economy. That was the message that Mamdani pressed home relentlessly, and it resonated with the people, particularly in this city. His difficulty, of course, is how it lands elsewhere. Democrats, the Democratic establishment, they're not sure it will bite the way it has bitten into the Big Apple. So that's something that they have to contend with. How they accommodate him, his support, his success, because they are going to have to. There has been a shift, a small shift perhaps, but a shift in the centre of gravity within the Democratic movement, and it's been a shift leftward because of Mamdani's success. Donald Trump, he has responded. On Truth Social, he had a forward response, and so it begins, he said. Of course, what begins is Trump using Mamdani to beat the Democrats, as a stick to beat the Democrats. He's controversial, Mamdani, because of his past. A staunch critic of Israel, has called for the defunding of the police and so on. And Trump recognises that he's an individual whose politics don't perhaps translate across to the wider America. His Islamic faith, there are parts of this country where that won't go down particularly well, won't land as softly as it has in New York. So Trump recognises that. And Mamdani, well, in his speech tonight, he said, look, there'll be no room for anti-Semitism in City Hall. I was interested to hear that because clearly he knows where the attack lines are going to come from because he has heard them. Communist, anti-Semitic, which he rejects. Insurgent. He's heard that all before. He will hear it again, grand style from Donald Trump and other Republicans.
Fascinating stuff. James, I'm loving how busy New York is, by the way, at 2 in the morning, like truly the city that never sleeps. I was really interested to hear what you were saying about the Democrats and their relationship with Mamdani. How much do you see this as like a wider Democratic fight back against Donald Trump, or is this more about one man, one charismatic man in one city?
I think tonight, Sophie, it feels like one man, but it feels like something bigger than just the winning of a big job in City Hall, New York. The Democratic movement at large have to address, as I said, his success. This is an individual who has injected hope into the Democratic movement. I witnessed it tonight at a watch party in Queens. There was real enthusiasm for what had happened. There was a real buzz about the place. Democratic supporters who had little to cheer themselves since Donald Trump won the last election. It's a party suffering an identity crisis. It needs direction. It needs a strategy for taking on Trump. Mamdani has given them a big clue tonight. The challenge will be bringing him on board, channeling his politics in a way that works in New York and far beyond.
James, as always, thanks so much, particularly for staying up late for us. Very much appreciated. One statistic, Sophie, just to finish things off as well. Turnout, over 2 million, the highest since 1969 in this race. So he motivated his base, and that was enough for a healthy victory. By the way, we're going to talk more about this. 7:30, we'll be joined by the former White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci. He'll be here with us in studio. Really looking forward to that chat to come.
I just want to bring you some more news from the US, because at least 7 people have been killed after a UPS, as in the kind of parcel delivery service, cargo plane crashed near an airport in Kentucky.
Images from the scene show a huge fireball erupting as the aircraft hit the ground shortly after takeoff. Our US correspondent David Blevins has the details.
A disaster in motion. Flames emerging from an aircraft moments before takeoff.
I think they crashed them.
Eyewitnesses looking on in horror as it exploded.
Holy
The smoke billowing into the sky, signaling disaster in Kentucky.
At approximately 5:14 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, UPS Flight 2976 from Louisville, Kentucky to Honolulu, Hawaii, an MD-11 with 3 crew members on board was involved in a catastrophic crash here in Louisville, adjacent to our airport.
The debris was scattered over a mile. There had been no harmful cargo on board, but fumes filled the air. The plane laden with fuel for the 4,500-mile journey.
This was a UPS plane that was taking off, getting ready to go all the way to Honolulu, Hawaii. So we're talking about over 250,000 gallons of jet fuel that was on that plane. So we're talking about a very, very dangerous situation.
Authorities said they expected the number of dead, injured and missing to rise. At least 2 buildings were impacted, one of them a petrol recycling plant.
We're still going door to door in the area to make sure that every business, every facility, and there's a couple private residences, everybody's accounted for.
The shelter-in-place order initially extended to 5 miles north of the crash site at Muhammad Ali International Airport. They grounded all flights, staff struggling to comprehend the tragedy.
My heart is with the families, all the community members who work for UPS, the folks who work at the airport and are there every day and are already under so much strain because of the government shutdown.
With no federal budget agreed, air traffic controllers are among those not being paid. That's led to a shortage of them in places and added to concerns about aviation safety. Air accident investigators have the grim task of ascertaining what went wrong on this flight, but these images will rekindle fears that America's skies aren't as safe as they should be. David Blevins, Sky News in Washington.
Our kids will be taught about AI and data science and have lessons in how to spot fake news in the biggest schools shake-up in a decade.
So today, a really important review into what's taught in schools has been published. It's all about trying to modernise the curriculum, and we've got a bit of details that we can show you as well. There's some quite interesting changes, I should say, to the curriculum in England. They're getting lessons on spotting fake news. That's in primary schools. Going to be useful for that. There's going to be a reading test for year 8 and a writing test for year 6. So the idea, I think, is to try and help spot people who need extra support. The government's also looking into a new qualification for 16 and 18-year-olds, all about AI. Well, let's chat to Anjum Pirvakas, our education reporter, shall we? You can tell us more. What's the idea?
So I think there's a real shake-up in the curriculum, and that's what we've seen this morning in the publication of this document. But what's really interesting is how forward-looking this is, and preparing young people, very young children at primary level, to be able to spot fake news, disinformation and misinformation. So that's a really kind of interesting take on helping prepare children as they interact on the internet, and we know that they're doing that at a younger and younger age. So this is really quite innovative in the kind of the changes that are being brought about by the curriculum.
Anjum, you're a former teacher, right? So
yes.
You know exactly what this is like, right? You've been on the front line in schools. How do you think it's going to go down with staff?
I think this is an interesting point that we're at in the education sector. I haven't seen yet how any of this will be funded and resourced, where the training is going to come from for these new specialist subjects in those areas, and that new qualification at post-16 when we're talking about data science and AI. We're struggling to get science teachers in the classroom. So this whole idea of this new subject being offered, I really want to know how the kind of logistics and the pragmatic issues around this will be resolved. It's a really interesting sort of situation that we're at, in a juncture in the sector, definitely.
Well, we're so happy, Anjum, you're here for us this morning. We're going to come back to this story repeatedly, including with Bridget Phillips, the Education Secretary, shortly. But for now, thanks so much. Now, the issue of worklessness is a really big problem. The number of people who are out of work with sickness is what we'll refer to. And our political correspondent Tamar is here with more on this, because there's been a big report that once again reveals the scale of this problem.
That's right. Charlie Mayfield, who's the former chair of John Lewis, was asked to look into this for government. He's produced this report, and it really makes bleak reading. I don't want to bamboozle you with numbers, but just a couple. There are 3 million working-age people off work sick. That's 800,000 more since the pandemic. And if we don't tackle it, that will turn into another 600,000 more by the end of the decade. So he's calling it an avoidable crisis of economic inactivity. And interestingly, the biggest rise, not the biggest group, but the biggest rise is in young people aged 16 to 34 with mental health conditions. And he says that this is really writing them off for life, because as soon as you're off work for a few months, it becomes really, really difficult to get back to it. What does he suggest the government do about it? Well, he put a lot of the onus on businesses to support those staff and try and retain them as best they can. And he's going to be launching a pilot with certain big businesses like Tesco and Nando's over the next 3 years to try and work out what to do. But it's going to involve costs for business. They're already grappling with higher taxes and workers' rights legislation. He says those costs will pay dividends. If you keep those people, the economy will improve. But the scale of the problem is huge. And interestingly, the UK is very much an outlier here. In other comparable countries, sickness rates are going down.
What I think so striking about that is, as you said, this was all kind of the catalyst of all of this globally in the developed world was the pandemic. Since the pandemic, most of the other nations have kind of caught a bit of a handle on it, and we haven't. But that's the timeline that this has gone a really big problem, right?
We haven't. And it's really hard to pinpoint the reason. It could be to do with work culture. Certainly the disabled groups who've responded to this point out that a lot of people in long-term sick are in what they call strenuous and insecure jobs. But also, Britain's rate of sick pay is very low internationally, which is also interesting because it's not related to that. So there's potentially a lot of factors at play here, but I think the biggest problem as we head into the budget is this is going to involve cost. Those costs may pay off in the long run, but he's very clear that that is what is involved for businesses.
Really interesting stuff. Tamara, thank you very much indeed. Tamara Cohen there. Now, it's that time of year again, I hope you're ready, where we are all in on Christmas adverts.
I'm very happy for this to start early, personally. I love it. I love a bit of build up to Christmas. So John Lewis is one of the most famous Christmas ads, and they've gone with some 90s nostalgia. I think we can have a little bit of a listen. So we got a little bit of a glimpse of this ad. This one then leads on to the son giving his father a gift that takes him back a decade or so. And the tagline, I think, is very compelling. If you can't find the words, find the gift. So it's a clever one, I think, this year from John Lewis. And it's come 10 days earlier than last year, just showing how much these retailers are under competition to try and fight for those customers earlier and earlier.
So interesting. As soon as Halloween's over, we're straight into the Christmas ads. Interesting stuff. So we've been talking, of course, about the big breaking story from New York, the kind of charismatic left-wing candidate coming through there. But there's also a really important domestic story today on the curriculum. And look, this is the kind of story that really matters, and it's really important to cover properly because it impacts kids who are going through, shall we say, one of the biggest generational shifts to their employment that we're ever going to see with AI, right? So everything we thought we knew about what kids need to learn at school is kind of out the window. Lots to unpack with our next guest, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. It was great to have you on the programme. I want to get into the curriculum review very soon, but first, just to get your reaction to that breaking news we had overnight. Zohran Mamdani, New York mayor, he's a Democrat, he's a socialist, he's described himself as Donald Trump's worst nightmare. I mean, do you think you need to kind of take something out of his playbook over here?
Well, I'll congratulate him on his win. It's obviously up to people in New York to decide who they want to represent him. We'll fight our own election campaign in due course, but I wish him well. It's a wonderful job to have secured election to.
Do you like him? What do you think of his candidacy?
I'll be honest, I don't follow American politics especially closely. I've seen a bit of it online, but he's clearly fought a good campaign if he's managed to secure such support.
Do you really not follow it closely? No,
genuinely. Like, I'll follow the big stories, but not especially.
I mean, some people might say this is quite a big story, though, right? He's a New York mayor.
It's a big story, and I'll follow the activities of the US government. I'll follow what President Trump has to say, but no, I've got as we'll probably want to talk about. I've got quite a lot to get on with.
I got that. I think the thing that's interesting, and we will come to that. This is a guy who's unashamedly left wing, right? He's talked about wealth taxes. He's not afraid to ruffle a few feathers, and he's pulled off this big victory. Do you think there are parallels with the Green Party under the leadership of Zach Polanski, who's done very, very well in the polls recently? And do you need to take that threat from the left more seriously?
I do think we need to understand and tell a story in terms of how we'll build that electoral coalition at the next general election. That involves making sure we're pitching to voters who are looking to parties both to our right and to our left. I think what some of those parties have in common is that populism, really. Some of the kind of easy answers that sound quite appealing but are ultimately not especially compelling. And the Greens will always say how important it is that we tackle climate change and invest in the future, but actually where it comes to decisions here at home, they'll be the first to oppose solar power, nuclear, wind farms, building a train line. It's one thing to kind of have a big argument. It's another thing to actually make the decisions and put in place the policies that will actually deliver what it is you claim to want to do.
Do you think we're seeing the same taps with Zohran Mamdani, those kind of easy answers then?
I'm not really sure about the analogies between the two, but I think you do have to look to the Green Party's record at a local level, which is kind of talking green, but actually when it comes down to it, not actually being prepared to do what's necessary.
Right, let's talk the new curriculum, shall we? So this is the biggest overhaul for a decade. What's going on?
So what we're setting out today is the refreshed national curriculum. So it's been more than 10 years since the national curriculum was updated. In that time, an awful lot has changed. You mentioned the way that technology is changing the world, shaping lives, and it's essential that we prepare our young people for that future, a future that I want them to shape. And I think for me, that's about a really strong academic foundation, so reading, writing, and also a push on science. But alongside that, I think what parents want is their children to have a breadth and richness in terms of what they can study. So the importance of creative and vocational subjects alongside that. And also our young people being really discerning citizens, people who can question and challenge what's in front of them and be well prepared for what comes next.
A lot of these things sound really good on paper, and I think most people would agree with the changes. But what I'm interested in is how easy this is to deliver. I've just been talking to our education reporter, Anjum Peerback, as a former teacher herself, and she said, yeah, it's great to talk about AI, it's great to talk about all these individual sciences, but where are the science teachers, right? We can talk about all these things, but we've got to have the teachers who know how to spot disinformation, talking to the primary school teachers, or who can teach the new AI qualification. What are you going to do on that?
No, I do acknowledge that how we implement this is almost just as important as the refreshed national curriculum and how we deliver it. So to take the example around science, I want more young people to have the chance to study triple science at GCSE. At the moment, some young people from disadvantaged backgrounds and in certain parts of the country don't have that opportunity. Now, you're right. That does mean we've got to make sure we've got well-trained and well-supported science teachers. The numbers this year actually are really encouraging. We've seen a big increase in people coming forward to train in subjects like physics, and we're also doing more to upskill some of the existing teachers.
There's shortages, aren't there? You acknowledge that. There's a really critical shortage in the number of people going to train teachers.
And we're making progress on that, and we've got 2,300 more teachers this year compared to last. But I'm just saying on the implementation, we don't want to rush this, we want to get it right. So the programmes of study will be out for consultation by 2027, and the national curriculum will be taught by 2020. I do think we should have a core entitlement for all young people that wherever you are, you get a great education.
I haven't spoken to you since you lost the deputy leadership. How are you feeling about it?
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed every minute, and I really mean that. Naturally, disappointed not to win. You don't stand in a contest unless you want to win it. But I do want to congratulate Lucy. I know she'll do a great job.
I did something a little bit cheeky before this interview, and I hope you'll forgive me, because I asked ChatGPT thinking about the kind of AI things, what your answer would be to this. And it's quite similar. You said you were disappointed not to win, you congratulate the new leader, you keep working hard in government. What's the real answer? You must be, how disappointed were you?
And of course I was disappointed. You don't stand in a contest like that unless you want to win it. But I learned a lot in that contest. I travelled the length and breadth of the country, met many of our amazing members.
Have you had a glass of wine with Lucy Powell since?
I haven't. No, I've seen her at a Parliamentary Labour Party meeting, but I haven't caught up with her. But the thing I took away from it, from all of that contest and the conversations I had, was that we do have a chance as a government to really tell a good story about what we're delivering. And actually today, this was a key manifesto commitment, delivering a revitalised curriculum for our young people. There's one
other thing that I just want to ask you about very quickly, which is the Charlie Mayfield review. So this is a former John Lewis chairman. He's doing a big review into sickness benefit, in particular, the number of people off sick. And he's basically said that we're a complete outlier and that our welfare bill is the highest in the G7 when it comes to this. What's your reaction to it?
So we're really grateful to Charlie Mayfield for all the work he's done on this. He's got a really strong track record in terms of what he's done himself, and that's why we asked him to lead the review. I think what he identifies is that, yes, there is a role for government in how we make sure we've got a system that supports people. Skills is a critical part of that for young people and for adults who want to get back into work, but the crucial role of employers in supporting people with disabilities as well.
OK, always good having the programme. Thank you very much indeed, Bridget Phillipson there, speaking about the new curriculum review.
I know, but don't flag that AI can do jobs for us, because we're going to be out of a job before too long.
That's her answer, not my question.
Yeah. No, but it's sort of revealed how exposed we all are. Great conversation there with the education sector. We've got another great conversation coming for you after this short break. We're going to be talking to the former White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci, about all of the news overnight with Zoran Mamdani's victory in New York. Don't go anywhere.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Gelsthorpe.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Mornings with Ridge and Frost. A reminder of the headlines this morning.
New York has elected its youngest mayor in more than 100 years. The left-leaning Democrat Zoran Mamdani is 34 years old, and he's become the city's first Muslim leader.
At least 7 people have been killed after a cargo plane crashed during takeoff from an airport in the US state of Kentucky. The UPS aircraft was carrying thousands of litres of fuel when it went down near Louisville Airport.
And children are going to get lessons in artificial intelligence and how to spot fake news. It's the biggest school shake-up in a decade.
We both need to go back and take those lessons, I feel. More now on our top story. The left-wing Muslim millennial has won the New York mayoral race.
So he's a Democrat candidate, Zoran Mamdani, and he ran on a platform that promised city-owned grocery shops and scrapping bus fares. Donald Trump said if he won, the federal government could withhold funding for New York City.
Minutes after the result, Trump posted on Truth Social, "It begins." Delighted to say we're joined now by the former White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci. Very good morning to you.
What do you think begins, Wolf? What begins?
Well, this is the big... let's get straight to it. Do you think he's going to genuinely try and hold back funding from New York? Do you think he's really going to make an enemy in practical terms of Mamdani?
Well, first of all, during the shutdown, he's already cut the mass transit stuff, so he's upset the whole municipal bond market, and he's slowing down now the infrastructure redevelopment around the city. So that was already phase one. I think phase two is they're going to want to make the new mayor a punching bag for the left. He's probably a centrist here in the UK if you actually look at the new mayor's policies, but in the United States, they would target him as being hard left, and I think the president wants to use him as a punching bag and a poster boy to try to make the contrast between the conservatives and Mamdani. And listen, I wish the guy well. I live in the city of New York. I did not vote for him, full disclosure. I grew up with Andrew Cuomo, so I supported him. but he's our mayor. I live there. I'm not going anywhere. It's like I tell Spike Lee, you and I are going to shut the lights out on the city. I'm a New Yorker, so I'll be there to work with him and to try to help him to the extent he wants to help.
I'm interested in your take about how much we should read into this. You know, is this just like one man in New York, a charismatic leader in a city that's Democrat leading, or is this a wider thing? Is this like a wider thing against Donald Trump and the Democrats finally getting their act together?
So, I mean, that's such a great question. I don't think we'll know the answer to that, Sophie, until 2026 or even 2028. Is he a signal or is he just noise? And I think the big generational thing here is that people younger than me feel very upset with the political leadership. They feel the political leadership has failed them. The city is ridiculously expensive. If you're a young person in the city, it's very hard to make ends meet. And Mondami, like Donald Trump, campaigned on one message. If you really hear Donald Trump, he's saying one thing to the American people: immigration, tighten the border, restrict people, push people out of the country. And that did work for him. What the new mayor is suggesting is affordability. And so I'm not certain that his policies are going to work to make the city more affordable, but that's the number one issue in that city. And frankly, Andrew Cuomo didn't have that message. It was a little muddled. He needed a crime and safety message, but he wasn't really speaking to that.
Cost of living such is in the UK as well. It really feels like a huge thing.
Tell us about the way that he connected, because he used a lot of social media. He's young, he's energetic. I mean, we've been using this word as well. He's very authentic, and it's it gives you a snapshot comparison to a year ago, where obviously Kamala Harris didn't have to go through a primary process, was sort of forced
beautiful it is to see you moving. Oh, how beautiful it is to see you move. You've poured out your spirit on every heart. You've sent forth your word, and it's come to pass. What our fathers and mothers could only foretaste is now in our lifetime. The order of day, eyes are unveiling, hearts are aligning, dead bones are rising, His spirit is moving, eyes are unveiling, hearts are aligning, dead dreams are rising, His spirit is moving, He's breaking addictions, yes, and breaking religion, yes, His spirit is moving, His spirit is freedom, eyes are aligning, dead bones are rising, His spirit is moving, His spirit is freedom, He's breaking tradition and breaking religion, His spirit is freedom, His spirit is moving, oh, eyes are aligning, hearts are aligning, dead bones are rising, His spirit is moving, eyes are unveiling, hearts are aligning, dead bones are rising, spirit is moving, He's breaking traditions and breaking religion, His spirit is freedom, His spirit is moving, yes and amen, yes and amen, yes and amen, 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 yes and amen, His spirit is freedom, His spirit is freedom, His spirit is freedom, His spirit is freedom, yes and amen, amen, yes and amen, yes and amen, oh, He said it, He has done it, He's breaking addictions, yes, and breaking religion, yes, His spirit is freedom, His spirit is moving, so yes and amen, yes and amen, 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 yes and amen, amen, yes and amen, You've poured out your spirit on every heart. You've sent forth your word, and it's come to pass. What our fathers and mothers could only foretaste is now in our lifetime. The order of day. Just receive. Amen, amen. Just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen. Just receive. Amen, amen. Just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen.
You are rebuilding the ruined walls. You are reclaiming your design. You descend as fire to purify. You are reclaiming your words. You prune as the thistles and the thorns fall away, so we may produce good fruit. For the harvest is here. The Lord has said it, and He has done it. You have said it, God. You have done it.
Oh, how beautiful it is to see you moving. Oh, how beautiful it is to see you move. You've poured out your spirit on every heart. You've sent forth your word, and it's come to pass. What our fathers and mothers could only foretaste is now in our lifetime. The order of day, eyes are unveiling, hearts are aligning, dead bones are rising, His spirit is moving. Eyes are unveiling, hearts are aligning, dead dreams are rising, His spirit is moving. He's breaking addictions, yes, and breaking religion, yes. His spirit is moving. His spirit is freedom. Eyes are aligning, dead bones are rising. His spirit is moving. His spirit is freedom. He's breaking tradition and he has done it. He's breaking addictions and breaking religion. His spirit is freedom. His spirit is moving. So yes and amen. Yes and amen. 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 Yes and amen. Amen. Yes and amen. You've poured out your spirit on every heart. You've sent forth your word, and it's come to pass. What our fathers and mothers could only foretaste is now in our lifetime the order of day. Just receive. Amen, amen. Just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen. Just receive. Amen, amen. Just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen.
You are rebuilding the ruined walls. You are reclaiming your design. You descend as fire to purify. You are reclaiming your words. You prune as the thistles and the thorns fall away, so we may produce good fruit. For the harvest is here. The Lord has said it, and He has done it. You have said it, God. You have done it.
Oh, how beautiful it is to see you moving. Oh, how beautiful it is to see you move. You've poured out your spirit on every heart. You've sent forth your word, and it's come to pass. What our fathers and mothers could only foretaste is now in our lifetime the order of day. Eyes are unveiling, hearts are aligning, dead bones are rising. His spirit is moving. Eyes are unveiling, hearts are aligning, dead dreams are rising. His spirit is moving. He's breaking addictions, yes, and breaking religion, yes. His spirit is moving. His spirit is freedom. Eyes are aligning. Dead bones are rising. His spirit is moving. His spirit is freedom. He's breaking tradition and he has done it. He's breaking addictions and breaking religion, yes. His spirit is freedom. His spirit is moving. So yes and amen. Yes and amen, amen, amen. Yes and amen, amen. Yes and amen. You've poured out your spirit on every heart. You've sent forth your word, and it's come to pass. What our fathers and mothers could only foretaste is now in our lifetime. The order of day. Just receive. Amen, amen. Just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen. Just receive. Amen, amen. Just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen. You can just receive. Amen, amen.
You are rebuilding the ruined walls. You are reclaiming your design. You descend as fire to purify. You are reclaiming your words. You prune as the thistles and the thorns fall away, so we may produce good fruit. For the harvest is here. The Lord has said it, and He has done it. You have said it, God. You have done it.
Oh, how beautiful it is to see you moving. Oh, how beautiful it is to see you move. You've poured out your spirit on every heart. You've sent forth your word,
also make shoes of the skin
and it's come to pass. What our fathers and mothers
Who are these 20 special
There's Millie, she's a
could
brown girl.
only
Millie who?
foretaste is now in our lifetime. The order of day. Eyes are unveiling, hearts are aligning, dead bones are rising. His spirit is moving. Eyes are unveiling, hearts are aligning, dead dreams are rising. His spirit is moving. He's breaking addictions, yes. And breaking religion, yes. His spirit is moving. His spirit is freedom. Eyes are aligning. Dead bones are rising. His spirit is moving. His spirit is freedom. He's breaking tradition and
work for UPS, the folks who work at the airport and are there every day and are already under so much strain because of the government shutdown.
With no federal budget agreed, air traffic controllers are among those not being paid. That's led to a shortage of them in places and added to concerns about aviation safety. Air accident investigators have the grim task of ascertaining what went wrong on this flight. These images will rekindle fears that American skies aren't as safe as they should be. David Blevins, Sky News in Washington.
Now, children in England will talk about AI and also data science. They've had lessons on spot fake news. It's the biggest shake-up of the school curriculum in a decade.
Today, an important review into what is taught in schools has been published in an attempt to modernise the curriculum. So there are some interesting changes, and we can take you through them now. Children in primary school will be taught how to spot fake news and identify misinformation and disinformation.
There's going to be a new reading test in Year 8 and a writing test in Year 6, and the government says it's going to help try and get support to kids who need it.
The government's also looking into a new qualification for 16 to 18-year-olds in AI and data science. Well, Anjem is here to tell us more about this. Anjem, just give us the background. This is, excuse me, it's been brewing for, coming out for a while. And what are the headlines that jump out to you?
So the fact that primary school children will be taught to spot fake news is huge. I think it's really innovative and forward-looking and forward-thinking, especially when we know now that children are using the internet and technology at a much younger age. So to equip them with those skills is really going to be useful for them. The idea of critical thinking and critiquing what they see and what they're exposed to online is also a way of keeping them safe, which is something I think is definitely needed. But what's also interesting is this inclusion of new tests and new exams. In the same line, they're also saying that they're going to look at reducing exam time. So there seems to be a little bit of a contradiction with the introduction of Year 8 reading tests, which are going to be compulsory and kind of blanket, and that writing test in Year 6 again, in addition to already SATs that take place at the end of Key Stage 2.
I feel a bit sorry for them. It's like Year 8's one of the few periods we don't have a test, right?
Yeah.
And now I've got another test coming in.
And it just seems like their learning journey is kind of interrupted or constantly kind of benchmarked with these exams. And I think learning should be so much more than that.
Just very quickly on mortgages, that's interesting as well. There'll be more kind of financial literacy.
So there's financial literacy that's being introduced much lower down. So children in primary school will be introduced to things like mortgages, but also how money is kind of used in a way that's going to equip them for kind of adult life and later life, because they're operating with money much earlier on now and much younger.
Anjem, really great to have you on that. We're going to continue talking about this all morning. The identifying fake news thing, Sophie, all jokes aside, I think that is it's great. I kind of want to see what the pointers are. But either way, more broadly, if people are more sceptical of kind of online content generally as they grow up, it's going to be really good. And the issue of worklessness is a really big one. The number of people who are out work with sickness is what we're talking about here. Tamara's here to break down what we're coming. This is a big review that the government commissioned, and it was a sort of theme that sadly we were all aware of. The scale of it is being brought home.
The scale of it is huge. This is a review by Charlie Mayfield, who's the former chair of John Lewis, who the government asked to look at this. And he says that economic activity is an avoidable crisis. 1 in 5 working age adults is not working. 3 million of them are sick. There's been a really big rise since the pandemic of 800,000. And if it's not addressed, that will rise by another 600,000 by the end of the decade. So he says measures really urgently need to be taken, particularly to help young people, because although older people are more likely to be off sick, the biggest rise has been in people aged 16 to 34 with mental health conditions. And he really puts the onus on employers to do more to retain those staff. He's launching a pilot, which will take 3 years with big companies like British Airways, Nando's and Tesco to try and help them keep people who have various conditions in work. But the suggestion really is that businesses have to do more, although many of them are grappling with higher taxes and workers' rights legislation. But the reason this is such a puzzle is because internationally, Britain does stand out, because other comparable countries have seen sickness go down. We've seen it go up. That the cost of addressing it could run into the billions, although he says that will pay off because the economy will benefit from it.
Tamara, can you just remind us where we are on the benefit stuff? Because obviously the government tried to get through the reforms, they failed. There's been an awful lot of stuff about getting down the sickness benefits bill. What's the latest?
That's right. So Labour MPs rejected the proposals. The government still want to have another go, particularly at sickness. They did actually manage to get some measures through on universal credit sickness benefit, which will be cut in half for new claimants. They do want to go further. They won't be able to go further on a big benefit called PIP, because that's being reviewed over the course of a year. So they're kind of stuck for a year while that's being looked into. They do want to have another go, particularly for younger people, because they feel they can make the case more strongly there that younger people should be in work. But I think the concern of a lot of Labour MPs is there aren't that many jobs out there, and you may be taking benefits away from people who aren't realistically going to find work. But the bill is absolutely staggering, looking to get to £100 billion in the coming years.
Tamara, great stuff as always. Thanks so much for that. Now, before Sophie's interview coming up with Zach Polanski, just want to remind you what's coming up at 1:30 on mornings with Richard Frost. We're going to be speaking to the former head of Barclays, Bob Diamond, about how Wall Street might be reacting to that newly elected New York mayor, and also a preview of what might be to come on the budget here.
Now, Zohran Mamdani's win overnight in New York is in part because of his ability to relate to younger voters, galvanising supporters through social media. And look, that kind of slick, modern campaigning style, the kind of authenticity, I guess, is something the leader of the Greens, Zach Polanski, is leaning on to grow his party here in the UK. And I'm delighted to say that he's right here with us now. I'm so happy to have you on there today, because I think there's an awful lot of interesting stuff to talk to relating to New York. I'm just going to ask about your poppy first. What's poppy about?
Well, the red poppy is for remembrance and the white poppy is for peace. And I think it's important both to reflect back on history, but also look to the future and say this is the time to talk about peace and diplomacy too.
Right, let's get your thoughts on Zohran Mamdani's win in New York? What are the lessons?
Well, I feel like I'm grinning from ear to ear because, first of all, I think it just feels like a delightful moment where hope has triumphed. And although that's about New York, I think it's also about improving people's lives, both in America, but that's what we need to do right across England and Wales. And I think what Zoran really did was connect with the lives of ordinary people, mobilise young people, and it wasn't just about social media. I think that sometimes it becomes about the communication style. He's undoubtedly an incredible communicator, but actually I think it was about the policies. It was a relentless focus on inequality, and that's exactly what we're going to do here.
This is the thing that's interesting, isn't it? So he's a left-wing socialist. He's been unafraid in taking on the right. He's been very critical of Donald Trump. He wants to tax millionaires. Are you the British Mandani?
Well, he's much cooler than I am, and I think it's important to know where your coolness lies. But actually, what I do entirely intend to do is the same relentless focus on inequality.
You're modelling yourself a bit on what he's done. Is that fair to say?
Well, it's interesting. We were roughly doing it at the same time, actually. So I think this isn't about one person's learning from another, but I think the left more generally around the world are going absolute solidarity with minority communities, with trans people, with migrants. But actually, the problems that are facing them more than anything is inequality, and inequality faces all of us, other than multimillionaires and billionaires. So let's talk about what we have in common and make sure we take the fight to the right.
The Democrats were sceptical about him, but he's won in New York and he's won big. Do you think that you could be the next Prime Minister?
I think it's not for me right now about focus on being Prime Minister, and that's not avoiding the question because I want to answer the question really directly. My focus right now, though, is making sure we get 30, 40, maybe even more MPs at the next general election. Now, that was what I was saying a few weeks ago. Since I've said that, I've been elected about 2 months today. We've over doubled the Green Party membership. We've had a poll where we've overtaken the Labour government. So to answer your question directly, things are changing rapidly for me in the Green Party, and now 30 to 40 MPs is starting to look unambitious. I can't give you an exact number yet because we've got to go away, work the numbers, and go, actually, if we keep growing at this pretty much exponential rate, what are our ambitions at the next general election? But right now, that isn't being Prime Minister. It's just making sure we get as big a block of Green MPs as possible.
You say that 30 to 40 MPs looks unambitious for you, and I know you don't want to put a number on it, but can you give me a bit of a sense of what is the sort of target? What are you looking for? Are you looking to enter a coalition or to be part of a government or to get over 50 MPs? What is it?
So we definitely want to hold the balance of power because actually ultimately what I want for this country is to make sure that we are taxing wealth more than we're taxing work. I want to make sure we have action on the climate crisis, and I want to bring in proportional representation.
What does hold the balance of the power mean? Does that mean you would go into, say, a coalition with Labour or supply and demand? What do you want to do?
Well, again, most politicians would say, I'm not going to answer that question right now, but you asked me a direct question, so I'll give you a direct answer. I won't go into coalition with Keir Starmer. This is a man who has perpetrated an ongoing genocide in Gaza. He ran on the coattails of Jeremy Corbyn, and I would say he ditched every single pledge he could. So I think the man's proven to be untrustworthy. However, I don't think he'll be Prime Minister at the next election. So it's very difficult for me to predict what a relationship between the Green Party and the Labour Party look like until I know who the future leader will be.
So what about Nigel Farage then? Are you saying that you might do a deal with him?
No, there's no way I'd do a deal with Nigel Farage.
So if you're looking at Labour, would a condition be, so I know I'm jumping ahead on all those things, but things have changed. Like you said, your ambitions have changed. Are you thinking that one of your conditions would be a different leader of the Labour Party, for example, that you felt you could work with?
I'm not sure it'd be for the Green Party leader to demand who Labour led with, but I think Labour membership and people who are thinking about voting Labour in the past are increasingly voting with their feet and moving over to the Green Party anyway, as well as lots of ex-Tories who are joining the Green Party. It's interesting. Often the phenomenon is that we're just getting disillusioned left-wing voters. But actually, there's lots of people who are looking at Kemi Badenoch and going, I care about basic things like science and like decency, and actually those values lie in the Green Party too.
You gave a speech last night on climate change, and of course we've got COP conference kicking off this week, the big climate conference. Do you have any high hopes for it, or are you not?
I don't have any high hopes for it at all, but what I do have hopes, because that's the number one thing we have to do, is that we can sort out the climate crisis. We're in the crucial decade of action. We had the UN Secretary General just a week or two ago say we're going to overshoot some of those vital targets, and it barely made a headline. And I think that's because we've all been paralysed into this kind of fear and doom-mongering, and there's nothing we can do about it. We hold agency and power, and when I say we, I'm talking about the country and the government. If we make sure that the polluter pays, we need to hold fossil fuel companies accountable. It is outrageous that we've just had a hurricane in Jamaica that has killed people and caused mass devastation. Why are we calling it Hurricane Melissa? It should be called Hurricane Shell, or at this point it should be called Hurricane Labour, because actually we still have a Labour government who are giving fossil fuel subsidies to oil and gas rather than subsidising things like they should be, like train travel.
Look, I understand entirely how passionately the Green Party is supporting these climate arguments, but the hurricane in Jamaica killed people, right? It devastated people's homes. And you're saying it should be called Hurricane Labour. I mean, that's quite incendiary, isn't it? We've seen protests against Labour MPs. We've seen people having panic alarms, and you're saying that the name of a hurricane should be the Labour Party.
Well, let's be clear about what is incendiary. The Labour Party right now aren't refusing to rule out the Rosebank oil field. This is a new oil field where the cumulative carbon emission impacts will be the same as 28 of the poorest low-income countries in the world. This is sociopathic behaviour if they don't rule it out. So I accept that what I'm saying is strong language, but we need to have stronger language about the climate crisis. It is killing people. Now, are the Labour Party fully responsible? Absolutely not. The fossil fuel companies are responsible, and that's why I've said that. But they are still subsidising those fossil fuel companies, and there are consequences to the decisions that the government make. And so what I'm saying, I don't doubt people like Ed Miliband, for instance, really understand this issue and they care about it deeply. But at what point are you still expanding aviation and expanding runways and not recognising your impact that you're having on the planet and the destruction of the planet?
You don't fly on planes, you don't drive, you're a vegan. I'm just interested to say, if you were UK Prime Minister and you were asked to attend COP, which presumably means getting on a plane, what would you do?
I would go, because that would be a different circumstance. But I also always want to say to people that I don't fly and I don't drive and I'm vegan because I'm Green Party leader and I have the power and the privilege to make those choices. But none of it is about that. It's not about individual responsibility. It's straight back to the last conversation we're having. Yeah. This is about government and big business making that system change rather than pointing at individuals.
So you're not trying to be holier than thou, basically?
Absolutely not.
What's your kind of vice? You must have a little, ungreen...
Do you know what? You asked me that last time when I was on the show, and I thought, I wish I had a better answer. I mean, I love chocolate, but obsessively so. Vegan chocolate, obviously.
I don't think
and as I'm putting on the weight, I'm thinking I should probably put that.
I don't think that counts, I have to say.
I'll work on a better one for next time.
Thanks very much. Zach Lansky there, leader of the Green Party.
Wow. I have lots of takeaways, two really big ones. The first one, you started that, obviously with Zoran Mamdani in mind, and we've been talking all morning about the authenticity of Mamdani. absolutely a comparison to be made.
Yeah, there is.
Do you know what? And for our jobs, the best authentic part of it is answering the questions. I've thought this for ages, that if you stick to these PR prepared comms answers, it's not helping them. It's hurting politicians that do that. People want authentic. They can see through the answers that are pre-prepared and not being answered. And it comes across so well. And you ask some really tough questions to predict forward to being Prime Minister. Normally they'd be like, gosh, I can't possibly go there.
I thought it was really interesting. He basically said that now 30 to 40 MPs of the Green Party is unambitious at the next election. I cannot tell you what a transformation of our kind of electoral maps that would be if that's ambitious. And also that he wants to hold the balance of power in the next government.
And that was my second big takeaway. All of those questions were absolutely spot on. But
thanks, Will.
Nice,
isn't he?
but if we had discussed that 2 weeks ago, we would have thought it was mad.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, it's the momentum is crazy. And again, that kind of brings back to Mamdani a bit. It's kind of like Mamdani 6 months ago before he got the Democratic nomination. And, you know, it's amazing how quickly the questions you would ask him have drastically changed and it not sound ludicrous.
Yeah, it actually doesn't. It's true. Well, there's a lot of news today. If you're heading out to work or on the school run, better get cracking if you're on the school run, by the way, not long to go. But don't forget, you can get up to speed on the day's top stories with our new Cheat Sheet podcast.
The QR code is on the screen right now for you. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Of course, 5 stories in 10 minutes. We do the work so you don't have to. It's in your feeds by 6 a.m. every morning.
So up next, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest overhauls to the school curriculum, lessons on how to spot fake news, AI. We're going to tell you all about that coming up next.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin. The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks. If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, welcome back. Lots of news for you this morning. New York has elected its youngest mayor in more than 100 years. He's only 34. Left-leaning Democrat Zoran Mamdani has also become the city's first Muslim leader.
At least 7 people have been killed after a cargo plane crashed during takeoff from an airport in the US state of Kentucky. The UPS aircraft was carrying thousands of litres of fuel when it went down near Louisville Airport.
And children are getting lessons in artificial intelligence and how to spot fake news. It's the biggest curriculum shake-up in a decade. There are also plans to cut GCSE exam times by up to 3 hours per student.
Now, at the start of the week, it seemed like the scandal engulfing Andrew Mountbatten Windsor would dominate Prince William's week in Brazil for the climate conference known as COP. But the Prince of Wales has stayed firmly on the task in hand. He's in Rio for his annual Earthshot Prize, and tomorrow 5 climate entrepreneurs will be awarded £1 million to further develop their idea.
So the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is going to be joining William at that event, and then they're going to be gathering with world leaders at the COP30 summit in the city of Belém. Well, let's speak to our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills. She's in Rio 4 hours. Rhiannon, do you think he's managed to, I guess, shake off the difficult domestic story?
Do you know what? It was always going to be potentially a difficult one, but yeah, look at this setting, and I think that has really kind of helped Prince William this week. We've seen him ticking off all the big, iconic locations around Rio. He's also here, of course, to focus on a subject that really matters to him, and that is the environment. But I think it's been helped by the fact that we've had that great picture as well. We had him, kicking a penalty at the Maracanã. We had him up Sugarloaf Mountain, playing a bit of volleyball as well. And yesterday, of course, I suspect in some of the papers today, him hugging a baby as well. That always helps on a royal walkabout. Today, though, the big focus, though, is on his Earthshot Awards, because they take place this evening. If you haven't heard of them, it's basically his attempt really to inject some optimism into the whole climate debate. What he wants to do is really reward those who are coming up with some of the most innovative solutions when it comes to tackling some of the worst environmental issues that we face at the moment. All of those finalists are up for huge prizes, £5 million each, and they've got an amazing start to the day as well. We are all heading up to Christ the Redeemer. If you've ever looked at pictures of Rio, you can't miss that as an icon. They've kept the crowds away this morning for all of us to head up there. William will meet the finalists to really kick off the day, and then this evening they all hit the green carpet with him alongside the likes of singers Kylie Minogue, Shawn Mendes, as you mentioned, also the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, hoping that in what is really it's such a pivotal week when we're talking about the environment, with COP coming up in the next couple of days, all those world leaders heading to Belém, trying to inject that element of optimism in what could be quite a pessimistic week when it comes to the climate crisis.
You've been talking about the amazing pictures and backdrop for all of what he's been doing. I mean, seriously, look at this backdrop you've got, and thank you for getting up us early.
I feel like I should get out of the way. I feel like I'm in the way of it.
No, you're definitely not. You're definitely not. You're making it even better. And by the way, I'm also, because it's so early there, I was fearful it would still be dark, but obviously sunrise is relatively early. It looks fantastic. But it brings me back to a key point on this, which is your assessment, Rhiannon, on how he's managed to not have the scandal here follow him. Is it because of great picture, or is it because all they've given us is picture and not allowed you and your colleagues and peers out there to fire questions at him? I guess central to this question is, do you think the King has drawn a line under this matter with the action he took late last week over the weekend, or not?
Yeah. Look, I think what the King did in some ways was it was a favour to William, but it certainly helped heading into this trip. The fact that we saw that Prince title taken away from Andrew, we saw his home taken away from him. Ultimately, the royal family have now done everything they can in terms of facilitating that further fall from grace that people wanted to see. We don't necessarily get to kind of probe the royal family in the way that you guys would probe MPs and politicians. But I think the royal family have been so mindful that, look, they had to do something. That was all of the briefing that I was getting, was that they realised these were really serious allegations, and they looked at public opinion, and something had to shift. And that's what happened last week. Of course, there was so much discussion about how much was Prince William involved in kind of encouraging his father to do that. All of the briefing that we're hearing around that is that actually Prince William was just very supportive of his father at what's a really difficult time. But yeah, I think also what William is trying to show this week is this sense of himself as a global leader. We've seen that this week. He's there. To be honest, meeting people is more important to him than probably politicians, but he will probably be one of the most high-profile figures we will see in Belém at COP tomorrow, and he knows that showing vital leadership is really important at this moment.
Rhiannon, thank you very much indeed. I hope you get a little bit of time in that busy day to enjoy the beautiful place where you are. But good to have you on the programme.
We'll try.
Now, greater focus on financial literacy, climate science and skills to identify misinformation are just some of the big changes being proposed in the national curriculum in England.
So it's a really big shake-up of schools, and it's all part of the government's plan to try and help critical thinking and also, of course, keep children safe online. Pupils are also, this is quite interesting, they're going to learn about mortgages and how to budget right from primary school as well. So our next guest, Professor Becky Francis, who's from the Education Endowment Foundation, she led the independent curriculum. Have you with us, and just talk us through what you're trying to do.
Good morning, Sophie and Wilf. Well, the review represents an enormous amount of work over the last year, gathering that evidence, sifting it, and then balancing decisions. But if I had to sum it up, I'd say it's about standards, space, and future success. It's about standards because for too long, high standards has really meant high standards for some young people and dependent on social background. We want high standards to be high standards for all. It's about space because we want to ensure that the national curriculum doesn't exceed its limits and that there's space for schools to do all the amazing stuff that they do beyond the national curriculum, you know, those performances, the work experience and so forth that build young people's confidence and bring the curriculum to life. And it's about successful futures because we want to refresh the curriculum and make it cutting edge for the present day, introduce some of that knowledge and skill that you mentioned, that protection against misinformation, media and financial literacy, and really make sure that the curriculum is fit for the future.
How needed was this refresh in the curriculum? Were we behind the curve, you know, talking about a new AI course? I think, you know, we've got computer science already. Were we drastically in need of a refresh, or have we been relatively okay at keeping things up to date in the last decade or two?
Yeah, to reassure your viewers, actually, we've taken a view of the international evidence, and we think that the curriculum and assessment in England is in a pretty strong place overall, but it's over a decade since it was last refreshed, and so some areas do need that revitalisation and bringing up to date, and other areas we want to go harder on and make sure that we make real improvements. As I've said, too many young people are left behind based on social background in this country, and we've taken measures to try to address that and make sure that high standards are for all our young people.
Obviously, everyone believes in high standards for all our young people. But I guess my question is, do we need to, get real on this? We're talking about AI qualifications when we have a shortage of teachers. We're crying out for science and maths teachers, let alone people who can teach kids about the threats of AI and the opportunities of AI. We're talking about having, a curriculum that's broad-based, that's for all. But if you look at funding for things like art equipment, for things like music, we're talking about hundreds or a couple of thousands of pounds for some schools. I just don't. The ambition I can see, but I just think the reality in delivering this is going to be hard.
You're absolutely right, Sophie, to identify, capacity issues in the system. I would say that the AI qualification is separate to our review. We're focused actually mainly on pre-16 subjects, and then we look at post-16. We're focused on vocational qualification, actually. But in terms of the issue of AI, obviously it infuses young people's lives and increasingly all our lives. Much of the work that we've been looking at is actually about how to guard against its effects, of course, in terms of exam reliability, assessment, and young people's daily learning. So I think we're at a real sort of cusp point in relation to our human relationship with AI, and we've been thinking about that in the review. You're right that computing is super important. We've taken steps to refresh that area of the curriculum and bring, as you said, those digital skills and so forth earlier into primary school experience as well. Because as parents will know, those risks of online harms, digital transactions and so forth are so critical now to all young people.
Professor Francis, just very quickly, we're nearly out of time, but this financial literacy aspect to go into the curriculum, is that a big shift or just around the edges?
It's really building on what was there, but one of the key things that we're doing is making this mandatory in the primary school through the citizenship curriculum and bringing that into the national curriculum to make sure that it's an entitlement for all young people.
Really interesting. Professor Becky Francis, thanks so much for joining us.
Right, we are talking now about scam calls on your phone. That whole thing where your phone rings, it's an unknown number, and it's someone trying to say that you've got a lot of money in your bank account or that there's a great new job waiting for you, and if it's too good to be true, it basically is too good to be true. But we're hoping that those calls could start to go down because of action by some of the UK's biggest mobile networks.
And Oliver's here to tell us exactly about this. So these networks they've come up with a new way, they think, to reduce scam calls?
Yeah, so basically a lot of the time when you get a scam call, it'll come up with a UK number on your phone. You're more likely to pick up an unknown UK number than what you are an international unknown number, but a lot of these call centres are based abroad, and that's where the vast majority of this fraud is happening, and it comes at a huge cost to the economy. So what the mobile operators are trying to do is to block the calls and block these call centres from pretending that they've got a UK number. It's a process called spoofing.
To be honest, it sounds like a bit of a no-brainer. When I first heard the story, I was like, that's never going to happen. They're never going to be able to eliminate this in a year. But actually, you're right. If it's a foreign number, then I think most people would be much less likely to pick it up.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, how many times have you been tricked into it? I know personally, I feel sort of a bit had when you fall for it. And you just, the things that they come up with are just so preposterous, aren't they? Have you been involved in a car accident? No.
Well, do you know what? Is the data backing up my family's experience in this, which is there's a generational aspect to this.
Yeah.
I'm afraid my mum kind of falls for some of these things quite often. But, we might answer the calls we get coming in. But if someone says to us, can I have your bank details because I'm going to pay you £3,000, I mean, you're unlikely to fall for it.
So there is a stark difference in the data. So in the over 16 category, 16% of people have been targeted by a scam call and fallen for it. When you look at the over 65s, 3 in every 5 people have been targeted. And some of the losses are huge, £4,000 on average. And the other problem that we've got is that Action Fraud was set up. It was meant to be run by the City of London Police. It was meant to be the one-stop shop that people will go to. They get their problems sorted. And it's just not been seen as being fit for purpose. And that replacement that was meant to come in has been delayed and delayed and delayed.
It's a really big deal. And like you say, for us it might be an annoyance, but for some people it is also, because it's much more sophisticated in some places than we think as well. Always good to have you on. Thanks very much for being on the programme this morning.
Thanks very much, Oliver. Right, to come after the break, we'll be speaking to the former CEO of Barclays, Bob Diamond. You might remember him. He is also American, so perfectly placed to talk about the Zoran Mamdani victory and to look ahead to Rachel Reese's budget. We'll be right back.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Welcome to the world.
Come along for the journey, it'll be fun.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but to you, this is the war game.
There were a number of armed security.
We want to discover, to find out what's really going on.
Everything you need to know about British politics in about 20 minutes.
I actually don't like political drama.
So, where next?
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin. The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks. If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Well, welcome back to Mornings with Ridge and Frost. More on our top story now. Zoran Mamdani will be New York City's new mayor, and in his victory speech to Donald Trump, he said, "Turn the volume up." The Democrats also won the governor elections in New Jersey and Virginia. So is this the first sign of a fight back against Donald Trump? And what does Mamdani's victory mean for New York City as a financial centre? Delighted to say we're joined now by the former CEO of Barclays, Bob Diamond, who is, of course, also an American, so perfectly placed to answer some of those questions. Bob, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Wilfred, good to be here, and congratulations on all you're doing.
Oh, well, you're very kind to mention it, but much more important we talk to you. And on Mamdani, it was interesting, we spoke to Anthony Scaramucci an hour ago, and he, maybe I was a bit surprised by this, very clearly said, "I'm not leaving New York. I love New York." Will that apply to all bankers in New York City, or is there a threat with some of the more left-of-centre policies that Mamdani holds?
I mean, I think we'll have to see this play out. I don't think there's going to be a knee-jerk reaction. I compare and contrast in some ways. First of all, New York is on fire. I mean, the city is really doing well. COVID was difficult. I think very challenging with people working from home and less people in the offices. But, you know, I walk into work down Park Avenue or Madison Avenue in Midtown every day. It's absolutely packed. There's new restaurants coming every week. So I think New York is in a very, very good position. It's a democratic city. It's a democratic state. So this isn't a big surprise. We had two Democrats really running against each other. And I compare and contrast Wilfred a little bit to London in its heyday. We had Red Ken Kingstone, and people were pulling their hair out when he was elected about the financial center in London. But it was like, I think it was from 2000 to 2008. It was the heyday of London in financial services. So, you know, I think that New York is far bigger than just a mayor.
In terms of whether it broadens out, I guess there's also, to your point about Ken Livingstone as a mayor, and Mamdani's got more powers, but he's not the governor and he's not the president. Would that sort of candidate on a more national scale be a blow for the US economy? Or are we seeing actually that this sort of authentic approach is what people want?
I think what we're seeing politically is slightly different than that, but I think you're on the right point, is we're seeing people from the far right and the far left. And I think most of us yearn for the day when people are moving toward the middle and making compromise and making decisions. So I think politics continues to divide people in the US for sure. I think these elections in Virginia, in New Jersey, in New York, you know, the Democrats will hail it as 3 victories, but keep in mind that those 3 states all voted for Kamala Harris. So I think it's going to be more of the same. We're still a divided country in terms of our politics. And I think too divided, I'd like to see us come closer to the center and come closer to working together.
Let's talk about the situation here. Big speech from Rachel Reeves yesterday, as we were just discussing off camera a little bit. Widely it's being interpreted, we don't know yet, of course, what's going to come in the budget, but widely it's being interpreted as that tax hikes are coming, and that in fact she might break a manifesto promise and hike something like income tax, pull one of the big tax levers. If we are in a place where taxes have to go up, and maybe we'll come back to that is it better from the banker's perspective, from the economist's perspective, to break a political promise and pull a big lever rather than some of the long tail of smaller taxes that you could approach?
I think it's a slightly different issue. And I know Simon French of Panmure Liberum, one of our portfolio companies, comes on this show with you. I thought he had a terrific article earlier in the week ahead of the chancellor's speech. And I think, you know, we always have to balance borrowing, which, you know, the gilt markets would say no more borrowing, with cutting spending and raising taxes, and it always should be a mix. And I think the city is supportive of the chancellor, but I think the chancellor has a hard time getting any spending cutting through her own party. And that's the real fundamental issue here, is you have a party with a very strong majority that's not supporting the decisions that I think the chancellor would be making on more of a balance. And there's always been a balance over the years, for decades. When challenges like this come up, do you reduce spending or do you raise taxes? And it always needs to be a blend of both. I know under Osborne, it was always kind of that 80-20 rule of cut spending and raise taxes. And I don't think it's 80-20, 40-60. That's not the issue. The issue is there needs to be a plan that balances both. And I think the chancellor has really struggled to get any support from her own party for cutting spending.
Stepping back more broadly, you left Barclays, I think, 2012. Obviously, you know banking here and in America incredibly well. London as a financial centre versus New York, back when you were CEO of Barclays, was it neck and neck, or was that a bit generous to London? Where is it now? What's the one thing, if there was one magic wand aspect that we should be doing here in London?
Well, listen, I certainly thought in the years I was here with Barclays from 1996 to 2012 that London was gaining huge traction. The single currency was coming. Comparing